Chapter 72. Lin Sun was rarely flustered and exasperated. He rushed out of the room and drove Fatty Diao and the bones out with a gloomy face. Then he took a deep breath and returned to the room. He looked at Xia Ji and said seriously, "Why do you do this?" Xia Ji's face was also full of seriousness. She asked, "Haven't you promised me?" Lin Sun was stunned. "Why did I promise you?" Xia Ji said, "To fight." Lin Sun stared at Xia Ji in silence. Xia Ji also stared at Lin Sun with a pair of clear crescent eyes. Until the atmosphere in the room was so dull that it was difficult to breathe, Lin Sun sighed, "Let's eat first." He turned around and began to clean up the table. He spread the candied plums, spiritual fruits, roasted meat and snacks on the table one by one. Then they began to eat in silence. The extremely sumptuous dinner tasted like wax to Lin Sun. He finally put down his chopsticks and said, "I'm just a little worried about you." Xia Ji nodded and said, "I understand." Lin Sun said in a low voice, "You don't understand. I've lived with those evil people since I was a child. I've seen many dark and bloody things. So I know very well that once I get involved with such people, I'll definitely be influenced by them in the future." Xia Ji thought for a while and said, "But you're alive now, aren't you?" Lin Sun said grumpily, "I'm different from you." Xia Ji said seriously, "I'm different from you." Although the words were awkward, Lin Sun understood the meaning and couldn't help but sigh again. At this moment, Xia Ji put down her bowl and chopsticks and looked at Lin Sun. "I know what I'm doing. But if you're really angry, I'll choose to retreat." Her eyebrows were picturesque, and there was a touch of firmness in her tranquil expression. Lin Sun was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he smiled and shook his head. "No, I just want to confirm your attitude. Now I've seen it, so I won't oppose it anymore." Xia Ji nodded. Lin Sun filled another bowl of rice for Xia Ji and said, "Be careful these days. The clan of Wu may not let us go." Xia Ji raised her head and asked, "What are you going to do?" Lin Sun shrugged and said, "Let's find out their actual situation first, and then take action. This time we have to solve this problem by ourselves." A trace of coldness flashed in the depths of Summer Solstice's clear eyes, but it disappeared in a flash. After dinner, Summer Solstice got up and said that she was going out. Lin Sun wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. In the end, he didn't ask what Xia Ji was going to do, but he still guessed something and could only sigh in his heart. However, Lin Sun was not worried about Xia Ji's safety. Her fighting strength was not ordinary, and even Lin Sun was not her opponent. He believed that as long as Xia Ji was careful, there should not be any danger when dealing with the monsters in the civilian area. Abandoning the distractions in his mind, Lin sat at the desk, took out a swallow-wing saber and a plate of red fire spiritual ink, and devoted himself to refining explosive flame saber. Today's harvest in Golden Hall enabled Lin Sun to find a way to make money. In order to cultivate better in the future, making money was the most important part of his current life. 6 hours later, the swallow-wing saber on the desk suddenly lit up. Strands of glaring flames surged up and rumbled like molten lava. Once again, he succeeded. Looking at the explosive flame saber in his hand, Lin Sun couldn't help but nod with satisfaction. If Mr. Lu knew that I could refine a low-grade human-rank spiritual weapon with only the cultivation of the 5th level of martial realm and did it in one try without any failure, he would be very happy, wouldn't he? Inexplicably, Lin Sun thought of Master Lu and the huge hand that destroyed the mine prison. A moment later, Lin Sun suddenly picked up the purple pheasant inscribing pen and inscribed a spiritual tattoo mark on the hilt of the explosive flame saber, which looked like an ancient character, Sun. Lin Sun still remembered that every time Master Lu inscribed a spiritual tattoo, he would leave a similar mark. According to Master Lu, this mark represented himself, and it was a unique mark belonging to a spiritual tattooist. As long as you saw this mark, you would know who the owner of the spiritual tattoo was. The Sun inscribed by Lin Sun was not only his name, but also a kind of will in a sense. He was going to find the enemy who dug out the spiritual vein in his body. It was late at night, but Xia Ji hadn't come back yet. Lin Sun sat cross-legged on the bed and regulated his spiritual energy, but he was a little worried. Fortunately, when Lin Sun finished his practice, Xia Ji also came back. She was still wearing a black windbreaker, and her beautiful face was covered under the hat. She was no different from before. Lin Sun looked at her carefully for a long time and finally made sure that she was not injured. He said, "Come back earlier in the future." Xia Ji answered, washed up a little, and lay quietly on the bed. Lin Sun blew out the candle, and the room suddenly fell into darkness. Only some faint starlight seeped in through the window lattice, sprinkling blurred light spots. Dogs barked occasionally in the distant alley, which made the atmosphere in the room quieter. "Lin Sun, I killed a gang boss in another area. I don't remember his name, but I've gathered all his subordinates." In the darkness, Xia Ji opened her crescent-shaped eyes and said softly, "About tomorrow, there will be a sum of spoils. I asked them to exchange all of them for money. You are short of money, right? When they send the money tomorrow, you can use it." Lin Sun was practicing meditating magic and visualizing his spirit, so he didn't hear what Xia Ji said. Xia Ji didn't seem to care whether Lin Sun could hear her or not. She continued, "I also sent people to investigate the news about the clan of Wu. You don't know that although those local ruffians are bad people, they can get in touch with a lot of things that we can't. Fatty Diao has promised that he will find out all the news tomorrow." Her eyes were as clear as a pair of black gems that had just been washed with water, and her voice was clear and ethereal, which sounded very pleasant in the quiet night in the dark room. "Anyway, you don't have to worry about anything as long as I'm here. Do you think I don't see Mu Wansu's bad attitude towards you? That woman is narrow-minded. Sooner or later, I will teach her a lesson. But at that time, don't be as angry as you are today." Speaking of this, Xia Ji's voice was a little low, and she seemed to be a little depressed. After a long silence, a low, almost inaudible voice sounded in the darkness. "My name is Xia Ji. Ever since I was a child, my world has been filled with darkness. But you let me see a ray of light." Lin Sun's sea of consciousness was also dark, except for a bright star hanging in the sky. That was the first star lit up in his sea of consciousness when he practiced meditating magic. It poured out clear silver starlight to nourish his spirit. This star was also called the soul star. The more soul stars lit up, the better it was for the cultivation of the soul. Until the scene of the universe surrounded by stars was condensed in the night sky of the sea of consciousness, the first realm of meditating magic, star circulation, could be regarded as the consummation. However, Lin Sun's current soul realm barely entered the threshold of star circulation, and he only lit one soul star, which was still far from the consummation. Strands of starlight drifted about like gentle ripples of water, and they silently nourished the soul. At this moment, Lin Sun's mind was clear and pure, and he could clearly feel his perception power was constantly recovering. Whether it was refining spiritual weapons last night or tonight, Lin Sun not only consumed his spiritual energy, but also his soul perception power. Generally speaking, spiritual tattooists needed to rest for at least 2 or 3 days, or even 10 days or half a month, to recover the consumed perception power after refining a spiritual weapon. But for Lin Sun, who had meditating magic, all this was no longer a problem. When his perception power was exhausted, he only needed to visualize the image of star circulation, and he could completely recover overnight. In addition, Lin Sun found that the constant consumption and recovery of his soul perception was also a kind of refining of his soul power. Especially when his perception was greatly consumed, the effect of practicing meditating magic was much better than before. It was like expelling the old and taking in the new, so that the soul could be constantly refined and improved in the consumption and recovery. Just like at this moment, Lin soon clearly noticed that when his perception power recovered, he felt full and ready to move. He didn't stop this impulse. Almost naturally, his perception power suddenly erupted and soared infinitely. In a trance, he seemed to fly to the distant starry sky again. When Lin soon woke up, he immediately noticed that a dim star in the night sky of his sea of consciousness suddenly became bright and clear, echoing the first bright star in the distance. After more than 2 months, Lin soon lit up another soul star. At the same time, his soul produced a tingling tremble, as if a new window had been opened. Lin soon only felt that his soul power suddenly rose. In the past, he could only perceive the scene within a radius of 30 meters. But now, he could see everything within 60 meters in his mind. At the same time, Lin soon's 6 senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, became more sensitive and transparent. He could clearly perceive the subtle changes in the surrounding air and the floating dust in the air. It seemed that the whole world had changed all of a sudden, and there was a magnificent and layered picture, which made Lin soon feel a little intoxicated. This was the seeing the whole picture of soul power. The reason why practitioners were so powerful was that they could see what ordinary people couldn't see, perceive the mysteries of heaven and earth that ordinary people couldn't perceive, and master the power that ordinary people couldn't master. When Lin soon woke up from his cultivation, the sky outside was already bright, and a new day had come. And on this new day, the news that Golden Hall wanted to sell a peerless saber spread rapidly in the streets and alleys of Donglin town like a storm, causing a lot of noise. Chapter 73. The next morning, Wang Lin hurried out of Keystone business and walked to the west of the 800 Avenue. He was a little absent-minded, thinking about the origin of Golden Hall. How dare they say they want to sell a peerless saber? Why had he never heard of a shop named Golden Hall on the 800 Avenue before? Just yesterday, Wang Lin also heard the news that caused a sensation. At first, he thought it was just a gimmick made by some unscrupulous profiteer to please the public. But after thinking about it carefully, Wang Lin faintly felt that Golden Hall had some unusual means. An unknown shop was actually able to cause the entire city to know about a single news in a short day, causing a huge commotion. This in itself was not normal. In Wang Lin's view, even if the so-called peerless saber was just a gimmick, this kind of hype could not be done by ordinary businessmen at all. Therefore, Wang Lin couldn't help but come to find out. At noon today, Golden Hall would reveal the true face of the peerless saber. Wang Lin would like to see who the owner of Golden Hall was and whether the peerless saber was really as amazing as the rumors said. A magnificent chariot pulled by 4 golden mane white deer drove through the street and suddenly stopped beside Wang Lin. The curtain of the chariot was pulled up, revealing a kindly middle-aged face. He said with a smile, "Isn't this brother Wang Lin of Keystone business?" Wang Lin cupped his hands and said indifferently, "Shopkeeper Xiao of Treasure Loft." The kindly middle-aged man was Xiao Yuanzhong. He was the boss of Treasure Loft, a first-class business in Donglin town. He was shrewd and experienced. However, Treasure Loft and Keystone business were competitors, so Wang Lin didn't like Xiao Yuanzhong very much. "Haha, brother Wang Lin, are you also going to Golden Hall to have a look?" Xiao Yuanzhong said with a smile. "Yes." Wang Lin nodded calmly. "Golden Hall made such a big noise yesterday. Even I can't help but be curious." Xiao Yuanzhong agreed and said, "That's right. I heard that Golden Hall just popped up a few months ago. I thought it was just a small shop. Who would have thought that the boss of Golden Hall is not simple?" Speaking of this, Xiao Yuanzhong said meaningfully, "Now all the peers in Donglin town have been alarmed. Brother Wang Lin should be clear that one more strong competitor is equal to one more hungry wolf. In this case, I wonder what Miss Wansu thinks about it?" Wang Lin shook his head and said, "I can't guess Miss Wansu's thoughts." "Oh," Xiao Yuanzhong said and nodded. He didn't say anything else and left with a smile. It seems that the noise made by Golden Hall has aroused the vigilance of other businesses. It will not be easy for Golden Hall to gain a foothold in the future. Wang Lin pondered. Today, the 800 Avenue was particularly lively. Not only ordinary people, but also a large number of practitioners were rushing to the place where Golden Hall was located. What Wang Lin heard along the way was all about the peerless saber of Golden Hall. Not all of them believed the rumor was true, and there were some voices of doubt. But the more they did so, the more curious he became. Along the way, in addition to Xiao Yuanzhong of Treasure Loft, Wang Lin also met many big shots of other businesses, all of whom were well-known and powerful figures in Donglin Town. Wu Yongtai of Wu Business and Shi Wenfeng, the owner of Gold Collector, seemed to be the bosses of businesses, but they were supported by powerful clans. In addition to these people, Wang Lin also saw many figures of Gang Spirit Realm practitioners, some of whom were even ranked in Donglin Town, such as Lei Qidong, the senior instructor of Donglin Academy, and Sun Zhan, the chief instructor of Purple Gold Martial Club. All these made Wang Lin sigh inwardly that the boss of Golden Hall was really great. A piece of news with a lot of gimmicks could attract so much attention. It could be seen that the boss must be an expert in commercial hype. However, Wang Lin also knew that if the so-called peerless saber of Golden Hall didn't live up to its name, the consequences would not be good. Business was based on credibility. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, if Golden Hall dared to deceive the public, it would never have a foothold on the 800th Street. Before long, Wang Lin came to the front of Golden Hall. This place had long been blocked. 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside were full of figures, and all kinds of noises came one after another. Peerless saber? What level of spiritual weapon is it? Is it human level, earth level, or heaven level? It can't be a pure yang spiritual weapon. It's a supreme treasure that can only be used by strong practitioners of reincarnation developing realm. I don't think this peerless saber is divided according to its level. The reason why it's called peerless saber may be that it has a very unique function and power. Humph, don't talk too early. Golden Hall is not a big shop, but it talks big. I think this peerless saber is a fraud. How is it possible? No business dares to joke about this kind of thing. If it's fake, it will offend everyone here, and Golden Hall can't bear the consequences. Standing at the periphery of the crowd and listening to these discussions, Wang Lin became more and more curious. How would the shopkeeper of Golden Hall face this situation? Would Golden Hall become famous today and gain a foothold in Donglin Town? Or would it leave in a mess after a farce? At the same time, Lin Sun also left home. Passing through winding and dark alleys, he walked out of the chaotic and turbulent civilian area. Today, he was going to buy some ordinary weapons and spiritual ink to pave the way for the next refining. The profits from refining weapons were extremely high, and through refining weapons, he could also hone his spiritual tattoos, which was very good for Lin Sun to become a real spiritual tattooist in the future. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. As far as Lin Sun knew, some spiritual tattooists in the world would more or less choose to rely on a certain big force in order to refine spiritual weapons for these forces. While gaining wealth, they could also achieve the purpose of honing their spiritual tattoos. Along the way, Lin Sun also heard some news about the peerless saber that Golden Hall was about to sell today, which made him a little confused. He was very clear that Golden Hall was like an empty shell now, short of financial resources and shallow foundation. How could it have a peerless saber for sale? Lin Sun was puzzled. Although he sold an explosive flame saber to Golden Hall yesterday, it was just a low-grade spiritual weapon of human rank, the most common kind of spiritual weapons. It couldn't be associated with a peerless saber at all. Lin Sun shook his head. He was not interested in wasting time on such a thing. What was more, even if Golden Hall really had a peerless saber for sale, Lin Sun could not afford it with his current financial resources. Soon, Lin Sun walked into a street corner shop specializing in selling ordinary weapons. At the same time, in Golden Hall, Gu Liang was restless, not because of fear, but because of excitement. The street outside the shop was already crowded with people, and the noise constantly rushed into the shop, making Gu Liang's blood boil. He clenched his fists tightly. Whether Golden Hall could make a name for itself depended on today. Is this scene worth being excited about? Gu Yanping came out of the inner room with a delicate jade box in his arms. Seeing his son's appearance, he couldn't help but shake his head. Gu Liang scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed. When you experience more things in the future, you will not be so embarrassed. As the saying goes, calm in every big event is a character that a qualified commercial practitioner must have. Gu Yanping's expression was tranquil. On his ordinary face, there was a calm and unruffled aura. Commercial practitioner. It was a title of a practitioner who entered the Tao through commerce and fought for the road of cultivation with wealth. This title was full of the stink of money, and would often be despised and spurned by real practitioners. But in the young Gu Liang's mind, commercial practitioner was the most sacred road. His father was a commercial practitioner, who was also the person he admired most. Even in Gu Liang's mind, there was only one person in the whole empire who could be compared with his father, and that person was the most famous owner of keystone business in the whole world. Fortune Godsure. Let's go. Don't let our guests wait too long. Gu Yanping turned and walked out of the shop. Gu Liang hurriedly followed him. He came out. Is that the boss of Golden Hall? I thought he had 3 heads and 6 arms, but it turns out that he is just a mediocre middle-aged man. Look at the jade box in his hand. Is the peerless saber hidden in it? When they saw Gu Yanping and his son coming out and standing on the high steps in front of the door of Golden Hall, the crowd who had been waiting outside for a long time immediately became excited and clamorous. Wang Lin also narrowed his eyes and carefully sized up Gu Yanping. However, he discovered that Gu Yanping's face was too unfamiliar to him, and he didn't recognize who Gu Yanping was. But judging from his leisurely manner, he was indeed not an ordinary person. Wang Lin could not help but look forward to it. Did the boss of Golden Hall really have a peerless saber? Not only Wang Lin, but also Xiao Yuanzhong and other bigwigs from the major businesses in Donglin Town were also secretly looking at all this at the moment. Gu Yanping waved his hand, and the lively atmosphere immediately calmed down. Without any opening remarks, Gu Yanping seemed to be straightforward and efficient. He directly opened the jade box and withdrew a spirit saber that was completely suffused with strands of a crimson sheen. The saber was 3 feet and 4 inches long and about 3 fingers wide. Its blade was curved like a swallow's wing, shining dazzlingly in the sunlight. Swish! The gazes of everyone converged onto the blade in unison. However, when they saw the appearance of the blade clearly and the aura it emanated, the atmosphere and the surroundings instantly became deathly silent while a wisp of surprise and bewilderment appeared. The expressions of many had become strange, astounded, and they seemed to not dare believe their eyes. At this moment, before Gu Yanping introduced it, someone had already shouted angrily, "What a profiteer! Is this the King Peerless Saber you said? It is obviously the most common explosive flame saber." Chapter 74. That voice was furious and extremely loud. As soon as it was spoken, it completely destroyed the silence in the surroundings, and many people started cursing along with it. What the hell? An explosive flame saber? Do you think we're all fools? Get out of Donglin Town. You've gone too far. Golden Hall is definitely an unscrupulous business. How dare you fool people with a low-level spiritual weapon? Get out of Donglin Town. We don't welcome profiteers like Golden Hall. Get out of Donglin Town. Many ordinary people who didn't know the situation also shouted. It was no wonder that they were disappointed. They had thought that the peerless saber was magical, but it turned out to be an explosive flame saber that was very common in the market. It was more than deceiving them. They were played like monkeys. Even the bosses of major businesses who came to investigate were surprised at the moment. The boss of Golden Hall didn't look stupid. Why would he do such a stupid thing as digging his own grave? However, these bigwigs were all very shrewd. They faintly sensed that things might not be so simple, so they didn't get angry and kept a cold attitude. If Golden Hall left Donglin Town with their tails between their legs, they would have one less competitor. But what if they didn't? They'd better not express their opinions before the final conclusion was made. Wang Lin was also among them. But different from other bigwigs, he was stunned at the first sight of the explosive flame saber. It wasn't that this saber was too magical, but that he had personally identified it yesterday. This was the explosive flame saber that Lin Sun sent to Keystone Business for sale. Wang Lin couldn't remember it wrong. At that time, he realized that this saber was indeed an explosive flame saber, but there was a trace of unique spirit in the saber, which made it extraordinary. Unfortunately, before Wang Lin could carefully examine it, he received Mu Wansu's order to keep Lin Sun and his saber out of the door. At that time, Wang Lin was a little unwilling, but Mu Wansu was so determined that he had no choice but to give up. Who would have thought that the explosive flame saber would appear in Golden Hall only one day later? What's more, the boss of Golden Hall took it as a peerless saber to hype it up. Thinking of this, Wang Lin felt a little aggrieved. Now he could be sure that the boss of Golden Hall was definitely not an ordinary person, nor was he an unscrupulous profiteer in the public's words, based on the previous extremely shrewd means of hype. Since he dared to take out this saber in public, it must be because this saber was different from other explosive flame sabers and had an extremely unique function. What was the use of it? While Wang Lin felt wronged, he became even more curious. Curses rose and fell in the surroundings, and all sorts of filthy words flowed out endlessly. The scene was chaotic to the point it faintly showed signs of losing control. Standing on the high steps, Gu Liang had never experienced such a situation before. He was so angry that his face flushed red, angry and wronged. These short-sighted fellows didn't even know the specifics, yet they were already cursing. This was simply too much. Gu Liang was just about to refute when he was stopped by his father, Gu Yanping. At this time, Gu Yanping's expression was still calm and tranquil, as if he had not been affected at all. However, his eyes were sharp and bright, glancing at the audience like a knife. He said in a deep voice, "Whether it's true or not, and whether it deserves the title of peerless saber, we only need to identify it." He looked mediocre, but when he opened his mouth, his voice reverberated like thunder, immediately suppressing the curses on the scene. Many ordinary people only felt a buzzing in their ears, a surge of qi and blood, and their faces suddenly changed. The atmosphere also became quiet. What a strong spiritual power this guy had. Obviously, he was a strong practitioner in Gang's spirit realm. Many practitioners present couldn't help but be surprised and felt that Gu Yanping was extraordinary. It was rare for a shop owner to have such ability in cultivation. His words shocked the scene, and Gu Liang couldn't help but feel admiration for him. "My friend, how are you going to identify it?" someone asked in a deep voice. This was a practitioner with looming gang qi around him. Obviously, he was also a powerful figure. Gu Yanping smiled slightly and said with great confidence, "It's very simple. This Gu knows that there are quite a few people of the same profession present here. I only need to invite them over and have them tell everyone the truth. I believe that in this way, everyone will no longer doubt this Gu's intentions." Many people couldn't help nodding. This method was really good. At the same time, there were also many people looking at different places, where the bosses of major business stood, such as Xiao Yuanzhong and Wang Lin, etc. Wang Lin took the lead to say, "In that case, it's better to accept than to decline." He stood out. Suddenly, many people present recognized Wang Lin, who was a well-known treasure appraiser in Keystone business. It was fair for him to come forward to identify the explosive flame saber. "I'd like to have a look and see what's so wonderful about this peerless saber." An amiable fat middle-aged man came out. Xiao Yuanzhong, the shopkeeper of Treasure Loft. Seeing that he also stood out, the crowd became restless again. "How can we, Wu business, be excluded from such a thing? Haha, I, gold collector, would also like to have a look and tell you the truth." Then, several people came out one after another, all of whom were well-known figures in the major business firms of Donglin Town. Seeing such a scene, the people present were completely relieved, but they still had some doubts in their hearts. Was there really any amazing secret hidden in this ordinary explosive flame saber? Please wait here for a moment. My peers will reveal the answer to you later. Gu Yenping cupped his hands to the crowd, then turned around and walked into Golden Hall with Wang Lin, Xiao Yuanzhong and others. Looking at Gu Yenping's back leading the way, except for Wang Lin, Xiao Yuanzhong and others sneered in their hearts. Gu Yenping wanted to solve the current crisis with their help? Impossible. As the representatives of the major business firms of Donglin Town, Xiao Yuanzhong and others certainly didn't want to see another competitor, which was quite natural. They had made up their minds that if the result was not satisfactory after the appraisal of this saber, they would never mind taking the opportunity to stab Golden Hall and make it disappear from Donglin Town completely. Outside Golden Hall, it was still crowded, and everyone was waiting for a result. Standing in front of Golden Hall, Gu Liang's heart was pounding. He vaguely felt that it was inappropriate for his father to do so. His peers in Donglin Town were eager to see Golden Hall make a fool of themselves. How could they help him? But out of respect and confidence for his father, Gu Liang didn't panic because of this. As time went by, there was no movement in Golden Hall, which made the crowd around impatient. Why did it take so long to appraise an explosive flame saber? When the crowd became more and more impatient, there was finally some movement in Golden Hall. The first one to come out was Xiao Yuanzhong, the boss of Treasure Loft. But at this moment, he was in a trance with his eyebrows tightly knitted. His usually kind face was faintly covered with a touch of surprise and solemnity. After coming out, Xiao Yuanzhong squeezed through the crowd with his guards and hurried away in his chariot without saying a word. This scene shocked everyone present. What on earth happened in Golden Hall just now? Not long after, 5 or 6 people, including the shopkeeper of Gold Collector and the shopkeeper of Wu Business, also came out one after another. Each of them looked gloomy, doubtful, or thoughtful. Like Xiao Yuanzhong, they turned around and left without saying a word as soon as they walked out of Golden Hall. Seeing this, many clever people in the field had vaguely guessed something, but they couldn't be sure. Most people became a little confused. What was the result of the appraisal? At this time, they saw Gu Yenping and Wang Lin walking out side by side. The former looked relaxed and talked cheerfully, while the latter shook his head and sighed from time to time. I didn't expect that it was shopkeeper Gu who had sharp eyes and got a great treasure in the end. Wang Lin said with a little regret. Thank you for your praise. I don't deserve it. Gu Yenping smiled and cupped his hands. Alas! Wang Lin sighed again. When he was about to turn around and leave, he heard a voice in the crowd. Taoism Peer Wang Lin, what's the result of the appraisal? As soon as the words came out, many people looked in the direction of the voice. Seeing this, Wang Lin was silent for a long time and then said, It deserves the word peerless. Then he turned around and left. As soon as this comment came out, all the people present were shocked and burst into an uproar. That ordinary explosive flame saber could really be called peerless? Looking at the shock and confusion on the people's faces, Gu Liang couldn't help laughing. The anger and grievances in his heart were swept away, and he was very happy. Gu Yenping's expression was still as calm and indifferent as before. This kind of calmness was also rare. Clang! A sound of saber rang through the whole field. Gu Yenping took out the explosive flame saber, and the blade surged with the flame like the tide, gorgeous and dazzling. All of a sudden, all the people present were attracted to it. It seemed that they wanted to see what mystery this saber had, and why it deserved the word peerless. It's hard to explain the mystery of this saber in a few words, but I can tell you that the power of this saber is 20% stronger than that of other explosive flame sabers, which can be compared with a middle-grade spiritual weapon of human rank. Gu Yenping said slowly with a confident look on his face. 20% stronger. Only a few words shocked many practitioners present. They were all experts, so they naturally knew what it meant for a common low-grade spiritual weapon of human rank to have 20% more power. The most important thing was that this saber was still a low-grade spiritual weapon of human rank, but it already had the power comparable to a middle-grade spiritual weapon of human rank. This was really rare. Especially this explosive flame saber was an extremely common spiritual weapon, but it could produce such a unique power, which could indeed be called peerless. At least in the whole empire, there might not be a similar spiritual weapon. What made people even more curious was who refined such a rare spirit saber. Ordinary spiritual tattooists couldn't do this at all. A spiritual tattoo master might be able to refine a variety of high-grade spiritual weapons, but it would be very difficult for him to create a new power in the most common low-grade spiritual weapon of human rank. Could it be that this spiritual saber was made by a spiritual tattoo master? Perhaps only such a transcendent being could create a completely different kind of explosive flame saber in an ingenious way. Many people thought to themselves, but unfortunately, they probably didn't know that the owner who refined this explosive flame saber was just a little-known spiritual apprentice, not even a spiritual tattooist. Chapter 75. At 1:15, the storm caused by the peerless saber came to an end in front of Golden Hall. After confirming the extraordinariness of the explosive flame saber, many people started bidding on the spot. In the end, someone even offered 800 imperial silver coins for the saber, but it was finally bought by a practitioner in Gang Spirit Realm at the price of 300 imperial silver coins. The price of 300 imperial silver coins was outrageous, especially for a low-grade spiritual weapon of human rank, which was even more incredible. After all, the price of such a spiritual weapon in the market was generally between 30 imperial silver coins to 80 imperial silver coins, so 300 imperial silver coins were enough to buy a high-grade spiritual weapon of human rank. But those who knew the secret of this saber knew that the 300 imperial silver coins were not wasted, because it was so unique that there was no second one like it in the whole empire so far. The rarer something was, the more precious it was. When an ordinary spiritual weapon suddenly had a unique property, it was no longer ordinary. For Gu Yenping, the price of 800 imperial silver coins was too high. Anyway, the explosive flame saber was just an ordinary spiritual weapon, so 300 imperial silver coins were enough for him. His action won the praise and favor of many people present, and even improved the reputation of Golden Hall. It could be said that after today's event, Golden Hall had completely opened up the market in Donglin Town. But if it really wanted to stand firm, it still needed to operate step by step. And all this was thanks to a saber. Sitting in the inner chamber of Golden Hall, Gu Yenping unconsciously thought of Lin Sun again, thinking that Keystone Business really made a mistake this time and let him pick up a good treasure to reverse the situation. Father, I have contacted the supplier, and they have signed a cooperation contract with us. Gu Liang walked in and said happily. Gu Yenping nodded absent-mindedly and said, Liang although we've opened up our business now, trouble will follow. The others in this city won't let us do business just like that. Gu Liang frowned, and the joy on his face faded a lot. Father, in your opinion, what should we do next? Gu Yenping muttered. Do you remember the child who sold explosive flame saber yesterday? Gu Liang answered without hesitation, Of course. Gu Yenping took a deep breath and said, Your next task is to find this child and invite him to Golden Hall for a talk. Gu Liang's heart jolted as he vaguely understood his father's thoughts. He nodded and said, "Father, don't worry. That young master is our savior. I will definitely complete this matter perfectly." Gu Yanping nodded. He suddenly sighed and said, "A single treasure can only bring popularity for a short period of time. If you want this to continue for a long time, you must have more treasures. Only then can you compete with others in the same trade. However, this is easier said than done." Although the matter had come to an end, the news about what happened in front of Golden Hall had just begun to ferment. In just a few hours, the entire Donglin town knew that the peerless saber Golden Hall sold today was an explosive flame saber. However, such an ordinary explosive flame saber had rendered the representatives of the treasure loft, the gold collector, the Wu Group, and the other top firms speechless and frustrated. The same explosive flame saber caused many practitioners to compete for it, and it was finally sold at an amazing price of 300 imperial silver coins. Golden Hall was on fire. From yesterday to today, in just one night, Golden Hall's reputation had spread throughout Donglin town, causing numerous discussions and uproars. The discussion about the uniqueness of the explosive flame saber was even more vociferous. Many practitioners who knew the truth were full of praise for it, and gave this unique explosive flame saber a new name, Flaming Spirit Saber. As for the major businesses in Donglin town, they were more concerned about which spiritual tattooist made this flaming spirit saber, and whether the spiritual tattooist was working in Golden Hall now. If they could find out all this, they would know the details of Golden Hall, and then they could take some precautions or suppression measures against Golden Hall. Even, they could spend a lot of money to invite the mysterious spiritual tattooist to work in their own businesses, and poach Golden Hall's talent. In the afternoon of the same day, these businesses all sent their spies to inquire about the mysterious spiritual tattooist who made the flaming spirit saber. Although it seemed to be done secretly, it still attracted a lot of attention. For a while, the discussion about the mysterious spiritual tattooist became a hot topic in Donglin town. As the initiator, Lin Sun didn't know all this at all. He had just bought more than 10 kinds of finished spiritual inks and more than 10 ordinary weapons. Although he had bargained with the shop owner again and again, he finally paid 120 imperial silver coins for them. When Lin Sun walked out of the shop, there were only 9 silver coins left. The speed of spending money like running water made Lin Sun feel a little heartache. "I hope the treasures made of these things can be sold at a good price." Lin Sun exhaled a long breath and walked along the street to the civilian area. When he passed by a busy tea house, Lin Sun happened to hear something about what happened in front of Golden Hall today. When he heard that the so-called peerless saber was just an explosive flame saber, his face couldn't help but become slightly weird. He vaguely remembered that when he sold explosive flame sabers in Golden Hall yesterday, he didn't see another one. Could it be Lin Sun was in a trance? 300 imperial silver coins. Lin Sun didn't calm down until he got home. Even if the explosive flame saber was made by him, so what? He had sold it to Golden Hall yesterday, so no matter how high the price was, it had nothing to do with him. "You came back just in time. This is the information sent by Fatty Diao." Xie Ji walked out of the house and handed Lin Sun a scroll made of animal skin. Immediately, Xie Ji took out an animal skin bag, which made a beautiful sound of coins colliding with each other, which made Lin Sun's eyes move to it at once. "These are the spoils, 200 imperial silver coins in total," Xie Ji said casually. Lin Sun felt a little confused. He pointed to the animal skin scroll in his hand and the animal skin bag containing the imperial silver coins and asked, "Where did these come from?" Xie Ji thought for a while and suddenly realized that although she said those words to Lin Sun last night, Lin Sun was cultivating at that time and didn't hear it. So Xie Ji explained again. Lin Sun's lips couldn't help twitching. He didn't expect that Xie Ji not only killed a gang boss last night, but also recruited a group of underlings. Not only did she get a lot of spoils, but she also sent Fatty Diao to help him collect information about the clan of Wu. After a long time, Lin Sun digested the information and said, "Be careful in the future." Xia Ji nodded and said, "I'm hungry. I'm going to cook." Lin Sun turned around and walked to the kitchen, but he felt a little complicated. Xia Ji's performance was beyond his imagination again, and he didn't know what to say for a while. Looking at Lin Sun's busy figure in the kitchen, Xia Ji couldn't help but show a faint smile on her lips, which soon disappeared. She turned around and returned to her room, muttering another name in her heart, Green Wolf. This was a nickname that belonged to a gang boss in another part of the civilian district. After dinner, Xia Ji left again. Lin Sun didn't stop her. He had changed his attitude towards Xia Ji and no longer treated her as a child. Sitting in front of the desk, Lin Sun opened the animal skin scroll, on which all the information about the clan of Wu was clearly listed. In Donglin Town, there were 3 local forces, namely, the clan of Wu, the clan of Shao and the clan of Jin. Wu Business, Treasure Loft and Gold Collector, which were controlled by them, were one of the most powerful businesses in the whole Donglin Town, sharing nearly half of the commercial profits in the town. According to the information, the clan of Wu had hundreds of direct clansmen, thousands of guards, vast fields of spiritual land, and more than a dozen mines. What's more, they firmly controlled the trade of spiritual grains. Almost all the merchants who transported spiritual grains in the town got their goods from Wu Business. In addition, there were 3 overmatches in the gang spirit realm in the clan of Wu. Perhaps the overmatches in the gang spirit realm were not so outstanding in the whole Xiao Empire, but in a city on the border of Southwest Province, they could be regarded as the top bigwigs who could call the wind and summon the rain. The current patriarch of the clan of Wu was Wu Chaochuan, an overmatch in the 9th level of martial realm, who was shrewd and astute. He was a very powerful figure. The first elder of the clan of Wu was Wu Yunshan, an overmatch in the middle stage of gang spirit realm. The second elder was Wu Yushan, an overmatch in the early stage of gang spirit realm. The third elder was Wu Lanshan, an overmatch in the early stage of gang spirit realm. Soon, Lin Sun had a basic grasp of the forces and resources of the clan of Wu, which made him a little surprised. He didn't expect that the clan of Wu had such a large force. It was indeed an overlord in Donglin Town. In addition to these, there was some information about Lian Fei in the animal skin scroll, but most of it was useless to Lin Sun. The clan of Wu. Lian Fei. Lin Sun was lost in thought. After thinking for a long time, the only thing Lin Sun could judge was that his existence was far from threatening the clan of Wu. In addition, the clan of Wu was afraid of the power of Keystone Business, so they could only deal with him in the dark when dealing with him, and the power they could use was limited. This judgment was very important, so that Lin Sun wouldn't be confused, and he would have enough time and opportunity to prepare countermeasures. But Lin Sun also knew that he would be in danger when the clan of Wu knew that Mu Wansu had completely separated herself from him. It seems that I have to hurry up. Lin Sun took a deep breath. The bright candlelight shone on his handsome and angular face, outlining a touch of firmness. Chapter 76. At the same night, in Keystone Business, Mu Wansu had just returned from a banquet jointly organized by the bosses of major business firms. Only the heads of the top business forces in Donglin Town could participate in it. Mu Wansu had thought that something big had happened. Unexpectedly, the most discussed topic in the whole banquet was Golden Hall. In the past 2 days, this previously unknown trading firm had become the talk of the town. Especially today, because of the explosive flame saber, the heads of the trading firms could not keep calm and gathered together to discuss countermeasures. Donglin Town was not large, and its territory had been divided up. Now Golden Hall wanted to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, which was intolerable to other business firms. Regrettably, no unified strategy was formed at this banquet. Thinking about it, these trading companies all had their own plans. Without enough benefits, how could they stand on the same front? Most importantly, the emergence of Golden Hall was too abrupt. In just 2 days, it made such a big movement that other businesses had no time to prepare for it. It was obviously too late to stop its rise. Mu Wansu was not interested in suppressing Golden Hall. She knew very well that in the eyes of the 3 local forces, Wu Business, Treasure Loft and Gold Collector, Keystone Business behind her could only be regarded as an outsider, and there was an extremely cruel competition between them. Therefore, Mu Wansu was not in the mood to get involved in this kind of thing. When she returned to Keystone Business and arrived at her residence, Mu Wansu couldn't help but be surprised to see a person already waiting there. Wang Lin, what happened? Mu Wansu asked. That person was Wang Lin. Seeing Mu Wansu, he couldn't help but look a little complicated. He said, Miss Wansu, have you heard what happened in front of Golden Hall today? Why was it Golden Hall again? Mu Wansu frowned and said absent-mindedly, Yes, I have. What's wrong? Wang Lin took a deep breath and tentatively asked, Do you know the origin of the flaming spirit saber that night? Mu Wansu immediately showed a look of interest. She invited Wang Lin into her room and took a seat. Then she said, Do you already know the owner of this spiritual weapon? After what happened at the banquet tonight, Mu Wansu couldn't help but wonder who the spiritual tattooist who could refine such a unique explosive flame saber was. Because of the increase in power, this saber was even named Flaming Spirit Saber, which was a great honor for a spiritual tattooist. Like other business heads, Mu Wansu was also calculating in her mind that if she could find this mysterious spiritual tattooist, she must use all means to draw him into Keystone Business. Wang Lin shook his head. I don't know who made the Flaming Spirit Saber, but I know who sold it to Golden Hall. Mu Wansu's spirits rose and her clear eyes lit up. Oh, tell me about it. Seeing this, Wang Lin hesitated for a moment and whispered, Miss Wansu, do you still remember Lin Sun's visit yesterday? Mu Wansu was displeased. Why are you mentioning that brat at this time? Could it be? Suddenly, she seemed to realize something, and her beautiful face suddenly changed. She cried out involuntarily, Are you talking about Lin Sun, the little bastard? Wang Lin nodded bitterly. Seeing this, Mu Wansu's original excitement suddenly disappeared, and her beautiful face was gloomy. After a long time, she said, You mean, the spiritual weapon he came to Keystone Business to sell yesterday is the Flaming Spirit Saber that caused a sensation in the whole city? Although Wang Lin saw that Mu Wansu's mood was not right, he finally nodded. Yes, I personally identified this saber yesterday, and confirmed it in Golden Hall today. There is no mistake. It is the saber that Lin Sun brought yesterday. Bang! The teacup in Mu Wansu's hand was crushed, and her plump and attractive chest rose and fell violently. It could be seen how emotional she was at this moment. Indeed, she did not expect such a coincidence. Yesterday, she had just proudly expelled a little bastard whom she had hated for a long time, and completely drew a line with him. Then today, she learned that the little bastard was the one behind the scenes who helped Golden Hall to become popular overnight. The most terrible thing was that if she hadn't made the decision yesterday, the unique Flaming Spirit Saber would have belonged to Keystone Business. Why didn't you say it earlier? Mu Wansu was a little unhappy and looked at Wang Lin coldly. Wang Lin smiled bitterly. I had agreed with Lin Sun yesterday, but Miss Wansu was so determined I could only. Mu Wansu said angrily. You didn't say that the Flaming Spirit Saber was very powerful yesterday. Wang Lin felt wronged by being reprimanded and argued. I told you yesterday. At that time, you said that it was just an explosive flame saber. No matter how unique it was nothing. Mu Wansu was stunned, and then suddenly remembered that she seemed to have said such words yesterday. She couldn't help but feel aggrieved. She didn't care about the Flaming Spirit Saber. What she cared about was which spiritual tattooist made this Flaming Spirit Saber. If a spiritual tattooist who could refine such a spiritual weapon could be invited to Keystone Business, it would definitely bring immeasurable benefits to Keystone Business in the future. Obviously, since Lin Sun had this saber, he must know the origin of this saber. But unfortunately, Mu Wansu ruined all of this with her own hands. Thinking of this, Mu Wansu couldn't help but feel regretful. If she had known this earlier, she wouldn't have fallen out with that guy yesterday. This bastard is simply too infuriating. Mu Wansu cursed in her heart. She finally realized that every time she encountered this kid, she would indeed suffer misfortune. Just like yesterday, she originally thought that she had vented her resentment, but who would have imagined that retribution would come back to her today? Could it be that this little brat was his nemesis? Mu Wansu felt her head swell. She had a belly full of rage that had nowhere to vent, and it caused her gorgeous and beautiful face to carry a wisp of resentment. Seeing this, Wang Lin couldn't help saying, "Miss Wansu, this is actually a good thing. In Donglin Town, perhaps only Golden Hall, and we know that the flaming spirit saber is from Lin Sun. This is our advantage. As long as we find Child Lin, we can definitely find out the mysterious spiritual tattooist who made the flaming spirit saber. If we can invite this spiritual tattooist to Keystone business as soon as possible, it will be a great blessing." Mu Wansu hesitated. "You mean you want me to bury the hatchet with that guy?" Wang Lin was stunned and said, "Miss Wansu, do you have any deep hatred with Child Lin Sun?" "No." Mu Wansu shook her head. Indeed, there was no deep hatred. It was just personal grievances. Wang Lin smiled. "In this case, I will meet Child Lin Sun on your behalf tomorrow. I believe that as long as we show enough sincerity, he should not care about this matter anymore." Thinking that she had to lower her head to Lin Sun, Mu Wansu's anger rose. She raised her eyebrows and waved her hand resolutely. "No need." Wang Lin was stunned. Mu Wansu said coldly, "Lin Sun is only at the 5th level of martial realm, and he has just come out from the remote Feiyun village. How can he make friends with the mysterious spiritual tattooist with his identity? In my opinion, the flaming spirit saber may just be obtained by chance. It is not worth the effort to get him." Wang Lin couldn't help saying, "But what if," Mu Wansu said, "even if this guy really has something to do with the mysterious spiritual tattooist, it is not too late to deal with this matter later. Our top priority is to wait and see what role Lin Sun plays in this matter." Speaking of this, Mu Wansu had regained her confidence. "Do you want me to lower my head?" "Impossible." Wang Lin sighed in his heart, feeling a little dispirited. He said no more and got up to leave. "Send someone to keep an eye on Lin Sun's movements from tomorrow. Find out who he contacts every day. Maybe we can find some clues about the mysterious spiritual tattooist," Mu Wansu ordered. Wang Lin nodded and turned to leave. Everything they talked about was about the mysterious spiritual tattooist, but they would never think that the mysterious spiritual tattooist was Lin Sun. In fact, it was reasonable. Lin Sun was only at the 5th level of martial realm. How could he refine a spiritual weapon? In the history of Xiao Empire, there were indeed spiritual tattooists in martial realm who could refine spiritual weapons, but those people were so rare that one might not appear in hundreds of years. Was it possible that Lin Sun was such a rare spiritual tattooist? Neither Mu Wansu nor Wang Lin would believe it. What was more, the flaming spirit saber was so unique that it could increase the power of an ordinary low-grade spiritual weapon of human rank by 20%. How could a teenager in martial realm do it? Even ordinary spiritual tattooists couldn't do it. So subconsciously, not only Mu Wansu and Wang Lin, but also Gu Yenping of Golden Hall regarded the mysterious spiritual tattooist and Lin Sun as two different people. Wang Lin left, but Mu Wansu felt inexplicably agitated. Lin Sun's figure flashed in her mind from time to time like a haunting ghost. Mu Wansu bit her plump and moist red lip. Her beautiful face kept changing in the light. Sometimes she gnashed her teeth, sometimes she frowned and worried, and sometimes she was in a trance. This little bastard must be sent by God to torture me. Finally, Mu Wansu let out a faint sigh. In the night, Lin Sun refined a flaming spirit saber again and succeeded in one try. But compared with the previous 2 times, he was not so surprised. The only thing that satisfied him was that after lighting up the second spiritual star in his sea of consciousness last night, his perceptive power had obviously improved to a higher level. It was sharp and tough, and it became more and more convenient for him to inscribe spiritual tattoos. Before long, Xia Ji also came back from the night. Seeing Lin Sun sitting on the bed and meditating, she didn't disturb him. She boiled some hot water, washed up, and lay on the bed. Looking at Lin Sun's angular profile, she was lost in thought. Xia Ji also read the information about Clan of Wu sent by Fatty Diao. She knew it was a little tricky for Lin Sun, so she decided to do something. But at this moment Lin Sun suddenly opened his eyes and said, "I don't object to you fighting in this area, but I have a plan about Clan of Wu, so I can't allow you to take risks." His expression was extremely serious, even a little grim. Xia Ji opened her dark crescent eyes wide and stared at Lin Sun for a long time. Then she gently nodded and closed her eyes. But she felt a little strange in her heart. He actually knows what I'm thinking? Chapter 77. In the early morning, heavy snow suddenly fell from the sky, and a string of arm-thick icicles hung under the eaves, making people feel cold. Swish, swish, swish. Saber light flew in the courtyard, rolling up thousands of snow waves. Lin Sun's upper body was naked, and his figure was dreamy and illusory. He waved the sky breacher so hard that not even a drop of water could enter. His figure became thin and slender, and the muscles on his naked upper body were like well-tempered lead block. He didn't look strong, but had a sense of well-proportioned and harmonious beauty. It had been more than half a year since he left the mine prison. Lin Sun had changed from a thin and pale boy to a dignified and calm man. His originally delicate and chiseled face had an additional radiance to it. Whoosh! Suddenly, a white bone spear sprang out and rushed into the saber shadows. Simple, direct, and neat, it hit the flaws of the saber shadows. With a bang, Lin Sun staggered and stepped back a few steps, and the sky breacher in his hand buzzed. This saber play is very powerful, but you haven't learned it well, so you can't exert its essence. Xia Ji stood on the snow in the distance, wearing a black windbreaker and holding a bone spear about 3 meters long. Her white face was peaceful. "I know." Lin Sun put away the saber, exhaled lightly, and began to wash. What he had just practiced was the 6-word saber play, but he had only reached the imperceptible level. Although he had begun to grasp the essence of the saber play, it was difficult for him to give full play to the power of the essence. Lin Sun knew that his saber play still lacked practice. It was not enough to practice it behind closed doors. He had to experience real bloody battles and fights. "You won't go out today?" Xia Ji put away the bone spear and asked. "Not for the time being." Lin Sun put on his clothes, covered his naked upper body, and began to prepare breakfast. He had refined 2 flaming spirit sabers in succession in the past 2 days, but the disturbance caused by the sale of sabers in Golden Hall made him realize that now many people in the city were looking for him, the mysterious spiritual tattooist, so it was not suitable to go to Golden Hall to sell these 2 spiritual weapons. However, Lin Sun believed that since Golden Hall could sell a flaming spirit saber for 300 imperial silver coins, they would not give up. Sooner or later, Gu Yanping would come to him. Because of the information collected by Fatty Diao yesterday, Lin Sun thoroughly realized that his situation was not very optimistic. Whether it was to deal with the threat posed by the clan of Wu or to guard against the possible revenge from Lian Fei, Lin Sun had to do something. Last night, Lin Sun thought for a long time and finally decided to seize all available resources to enhance his strength. During breakfast, Lin Sun told his thoughts to Xia Ji. "We can't sit still and wait for death. We must make some preparations and take action in advance." Summer Solstice listened quietly. Lin Sun pondered and said, This time, the clan of Wu wants to use Lien Fei to deal with me, because they are afraid that it will lead to the suppression of Keystone business. But now you know that Keystone business can no longer help us, so we can only rely on ourselves. Xia Ji raised her head and corrected him seriously. You've already said this a few days ago. Just tell me what to do. Lin Sun was stunned and embarrassed. Did I really say that? Xia Ji nodded. Lin Sun said, well, my plan is that we should take the initiative to go out and find a chance to eradicate Lien Fei and his men. Xia Ji asked, and then? Lin Sun's black eyes were surging with contemplation. The death of Lien Fei shows the attitude of the clan of Wu towards this matter. If they don't hesitate to tear off all pretenses to deal with us, we can only hide first. Xia Ji frowned. Hide? Lin Sun nodded and said, yes, I'm afraid that they have already known that we live here. It's too dangerous. After a pause, he continued, the clan of Wu is a big family with over 1,000 guards. They are the local bullies in Donglin town. If we want to be enemies with them, we can only adopt roundabout tactics such as assassination and sneak attack. At that time, the enemy will be in the light while we are in the dark. As long as we are not caught by them, we can absolutely make them exhausted. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun added, but this kind of tactic is very dangerous. Once we are surrounded or exposed, we can only fight desperately. Xia Ji thought for a while and said, if it's a sneak attack, I can kill a practitioner in the early stage of Gang's spirit realm at most. Lin Sun was shocked. This was the first time that Xia Ji revealed her real fighting capacity. What surprised Lin more was that Xia Ji had the power to kill a practitioner in the early stage of Gang's spirit realm. Gang's spirit realm. That was the real, extraordinary existence in the eyes of the world. At that step, one could refine spirit into Gang and absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth at all times. In addition, one could open up a mysterious pond of spiritual power in the ocean of qi inside his body. His fighting capacity was so strong that practitioners in the martial realm couldn't compete with him at all. There was a saying in the world that only when one reached the Gang spirit realm could he be regarded as truly stepping on the road of cultivation. Not only would his strength go beyond the limits of the human body, but his life, soul, and even his whole body would undergo a new transformation. In the eyes of real practitioners, the 9th level of the martial realm was just the foundation laid for them to embark on the road of cultivation. Xia Ji said that she had the confidence to kill a practitioner in the early stage of Gang's spirit realm. Although she had to rely on sneak attack, it was enough to shock the world. Who could believe that a 5- or 6-year-old girl had such a strong fighting capacity? After a long time, Lin Sun calmed down and said, that's even better. Xia Ji frowned and said, is that good? Give me 3 months to practice, and I can kill a practitioner in the early stage of Gang's spirit realm face to face. Lin Sun. He had thought that he had made continuous breakthroughs in the past half a year, from the 2nd level of martial realm at the beginning to the 5th level of martial realm, which could be regarded as an amazing speed. Who would have thought that Xia Ji was even more vigorous than him? This girl, he really didn't know what to say about her. Lin Sun rubbed his eyebrows and said, we don't have so much time. The worst plan I have now is that if we are really forced to the point of no return, we can leave Donglin town first and come back later. Xia Ji raised her head and said seriously, but I don't like forbearance and escape. Lin Sun shrugged. This is the worst plan, and the chance of it happening is very small. As he spoke, a unique rhythmic knock sounded on the door. Xia Ji seemed to know who it was and continued to eat. Soon, the door of the courtyard was pushed open, and Fatty Diao and the Bones came in, each carrying a huge box in their hands. Greetings, Leader Shuangmu. Seeing Lin Sun was also here, Fatty Diao and the Bones couldn't help being stunned, and then they squeezed out a flattering smile and saluted together. Lin Sun's lips twitched imperceptibly. It seemed that he couldn't refuse this ugly nickname at all. Put the things over there, and you can go. Xie Zhi gave an order casually. Fatty Diao and the Bones nodded quickly, put the 2 boxes in the corner, and left respectfully. What's this? Lin Sun asked. Xie Zhi stood up and said, I took people to wipe out another gang last night, and this is the trophy. She opened one of the wooden chests, which was filled with shiny silver coins. There were about 500 of them. Xie Zhi just glanced at it and opened the other box, which contained some bottles and jars, all of which were obviously valuable. Lin Sun went forward and saw the box full of silver coins and a box full of spiritual medicine. He couldn't help saying, Isn't the trophy too rich? Xie Zhi said lightly, Those gangs have been operating in this civilian area for many years, often robbing, extorting, and stealing other people's property. Do you think they are short of money? These trophies are only a part of them, and most of the trophies have already been distributed to other members of Shuangmu Gang. Shuangmu Gang. Hearing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel helpless, so, now, Shuangmu Gang has also become a gang? Xie Zhi nodded, and then added, This civilian area is a foul atmosphere, and there are all kinds of people, so the underground forces can't be eradicated at all. But under my control, Shuangmu Gang will no longer do those sneaky, murderous, and robberies. Lin Sun said in surprise. This is equal to destroying the means they rely on for survival. Will they agree? Xie Zhi said, They have agreed, because I took them to annex the territories of other gangs and gave them unimaginable benefits. Lin Sun was speechless and finally stopped asking. These spiritual medicines are specially selected by my subordinates, which are of great benefit to the cultivation of the 5th level of martial realm. Xie Zhi said, and the 500 silver coins in this box can meet our daily needs. You don't have to work hard to refine spiritual weapons to make money in the future. After saying this, she turned around and went back to the room. She was going to sleep again. Lin Sun had mixed feelings. War and plunder were really one of the most effective ways to get wealth. In just 2 days, Xie Zhi wiped out the 2 gangs in the civilian area and got 700 silver coins and a pile of spiritual medicines. Compared with this, the profit Lin Sun got from selling spiritual weapons was not worth mentioning. But Lin Sun would not give up refining spiritual weapons. After all, plunder and annexation were temporary and too dangerous, and the trophies he got were stained with blood. But it was different to refine spiritual weapons. It could not only bring him wealth continuously, but more importantly, he could hone his spiritual tattoos. From this day on, Lin Sun no longer went out and made full use of the daytime time to inscribe spiritual tattoos, refine spiritual weapons, refine his cultivation, sharpen his spirit, practice martial arts. At the same time, every 3 days, he would enter the battlefield of spiritual tattoos, Mill Waterfalls, to challenge. Although he still failed every time, Lin Sun could clearly feel the progress of his physical strength. As for Xie Zhi, the little girl slept during the day and disappeared at night. Every other day, she would bring back some rich trophies, either silver coins or spiritual medicines useful for Lin's cultivation. If it weren't for the trouble of the clan of Wu, Lin Sun would even like this rare peaceful life. Unfortunately, life was not destined to be peaceful forever. On a night 10 days later, an assassination attempt against Lin Sun came quietly. Chapter 78. Late at night, the biting cold wind was whistling. In the room, Lin Sun sat cross-legged and cultivated. After 10 days of hard work and the help of various elixirs, Lin Sun's cultivation had reached the mastery of the 5th level of martial realm. The spiritual energy in his body was as pure as transparent liquid, containing terrifying power. Although the 4 spiritual power vortexes in the 4 acupoints of the heart vessel could continuously refine the quality of spiritual power, there was also a problem. After the continuous refinement, the quantity of spiritual power in the body would become relatively sparse. Therefore, if Lin Sun wanted to reach the mastery of martial realm, he needed more spiritual energy and effort than his peers. Fortunately, There were a lot of spiritual herbs that could help to refine cultivation among the spoils sent every other day, so Lin Sun didn't have to worry about this problem. I'm about to break through. Lin Sun stopped practicing and felt the change of his qi, knowing that he was only a step away from the 6th level of martial realm. In addition to diligent practice, there was another more important reason: Lin Sun's increasingly strong physique and cultivation. The so-called 9th level of martial realm was originally a process of refining the practitioner's body and nurturing spiritual energy. The refining and improvement of the body was not independent, but would feed back the cultivation inside the body. Similarly, the improvement of the internal cultivation could also feed back to the physical cultivation. For example, the 5th level of martial realm, marrow cleansing, could also refine the muscles and bones, dredge the tendons and marrows through the improvement of the physical strength, so that the internal cultivation could be improved more smoothly. Similarly, the improvement of the internal cultivation would improve and develop more potential of the body, so as to remove the bottleneck of improving the strength of the body refining cultivation. All in all, the body refining was external, and the spiritual energy was internal. They were in the same body and complemented each other. Neither could be dispensed with. Some descendants of some big clans would also practice a body refining cultivation method when they cultivated their spiritual energy, so as to refine the Taoist root and help the cultivation. It was killing two birds with one stone. Although Lin Sun didn't have a body refining cultivation method, entering the spiritual tattoo battlefield, Mill Waterfalls, every 3 days had immeasurable benefits to the refining of his body. Naturally, all of this had a great effect on his spiritual power cultivation. Suddenly, Lin Sun was awakened. Xia Ji, who was sleeping on the bed, opened her eyes and whispered, "Someone is lurking in our courtyard." Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart. He quickly got up and hid. It was already late at night, and the area around Courtyard 49 was quiet. Only the sounds of stray dogs and cats could be heard. "How many?" Lin Sun asked in a low voice. At the same time, he spread out his perception, but found no trace of the enemy. Obviously, the enemy was either proficient in hiding or had not approached. 3. Xia Ji got up and methodically put on her clothes. She got out of bed with her long bone spear in her hand. This bone spear was very special. It was suffused with strands of faint chilly starlight in the darkness, and it seemed mysterious and murderous. Lin Sun had examined it carefully and was sure that it was a spiritual weapon, but he couldn't see the spiritual tattoo patterns on it. According to Xia Ji, this spear had been with her as long as she could remember. She didn't know its origin. When not in use, the spear would disappear in a flash according to Xia Ji's will. This made it even more mysterious. Even Lin Sun couldn't imagine that there was no spiritual weapon in the world that could have such a magical effect. It could be said to be unprecedented. "They are approaching. I'll go out and have a look." Before Lin Sun could stop her, Xia Ji had pushed the door open and quietly disappeared in the darkness. Her breath completely disappeared. Lin Sun frowned and took a deep breath. Like a sensitive leopard cat, he also rushed out of the room and hid in the darkness of the courtyard. Outside the courtyard. "Hey, you two, you don't need to be so careful when dealing with a kid on the 5th level of martial realm, right?" A sloppy man with long and narrow cheeks said with a frivolous smile. "Du Shurao, why don't you act alone?" In the darkness of the alley, a woman in a tight black leather skirt stood. Her snow-white, plump, and slender legs were straight and attractive. Above her slender waist and abdomen were plump breasts that almost exploded. Her plump red lips were bright in the dark. Beside the woman stood an old man with a sad face. He looked at the sky from time to time with his hands clasped behind his back. He didn't look amazing. The man called Du Shurao grinned and said, "I'm not interested in kids. I only like coquettish women like you." He licked his lips with a touch of hot greed in his eyes. "Really? Do you want to play with me now?" The woman smiled coquettishly and deliberately stuck out her plump, snow-white breasts, but her eyes looked cold. "Well, I don't want to die. Who doesn't know that as long as I sleep with you, Black Widow, I won't live to see tomorrow's sun?" Du Shirao shook his head and glanced at the woman's plump breasts unscrupulously. He said with an intoxicated expression, "Hey, I haven't seen you for a few days, but your breasts seem to be much bigger than before. It seems that you have harmed many pretty boys again. I asked you to do it, but you don't dare to do it. You only dare to look. Are you a man?" Black Widow said disdainfully. "Do you think I don't dare to do it?" Du Shirao's face darkened. "Are you done fooling around?" The old man with a sad face opened his mouth. His voice was stiff and dry, but it was indisputable. "If the target this time is so easy to deal with, the three of us wouldn't have to go together." The two of them were shocked at the same time. The old man never talked nonsense. Since he said so, it must mean that the mission this time should be very difficult. "Let's go." The old man's figure flashed. Like an old bat, he glided in the air, stepped on the wall of the courtyard silently, and disappeared suddenly. His qigong was very experienced. It was obvious that he had practiced it for many years. Black Widow waved her hand, and a soft whip broke through the air and wrapped around the corner of the eaves. She suddenly bounced up and flew into the courtyard. Du Shirao seemed to be sloppy, but once he moved, he was extremely vigilant. His hands climbed up the wall quietly like a gecko. It seemed slow, but his figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. The courtyard was dark, and the cold wind was whistling. The old locust tree in the courtyard rustled and swayed. The atmosphere was so quiet that it was terrifying. Since some time, even the sounds of wild cats and dogs had disappeared. It was as if they had smelled the hidden danger in the night and fled with their tails between their legs. The three of them entered the courtyard and moved forward in a triangular formation. The three of them had rich combat experience and had experienced all kinds of assassinations. However, as soon as they walked into the dark courtyard, they could not help but feel a trace of fear in their hearts. It was as if someone was watching them in the darkness. Something is wrong. My soul perception can detect within a radius of 15 feet. I can confirm that the target is not in the room. Black Widow suddenly said in a low voice. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito, but it was clearly heard by the two people next to her. In other words, I haven't locked on to the target's position. Her face became solemn. Assassinations were meant to kill the target by surprise. However, she could not even lock on to the target's position. The situation was a little serious. Is there something wrong with the information? Du Shirao's eyes were filled with a blade-like cold light. No, the source of the information is reliable. The target has been staying here for the past 10 days and has not left. The old man's face was gloomy, and there was a trace of doubt in his eyes. In my opinion, the target seems to have found us and avoided our detection in advance. Du Shirao's heart trembled. At the same time, Black Widow suddenly stopped without any warning. Swoosh! In the cold wind, there was a sudden air-piercing sound. Watch out! The old man's face suddenly changed. He exerted all the strength in his body and stretched out his hand. A bronze shield appeared in front of him. The other two reacted quickly as well. They drew their weapons in unison to defend themselves. Bang! The thunder-like impact sounded so loud that it almost burst the eardrums. The bronze shield in the old man's hand suddenly burst into pieces like a piece of paper, and the old man was violently thrown backward. At this moment, the old man's cruelty was fully demonstrated. He suddenly jumped up and glided to one side like a frightened bat. Black Widow and Du Shirao also realized that something was wrong. One of them threw out a long whip and wrapped it around the branch of the old locust tree next to her. She suddenly flew backward like a shooting rainbow. The other directly rolled on the ground and rushed out close to the ground. Bang! A white-boned spear fiercely pierced into the place where the three of them had been, blasting a big hole in the ground. The three of them were instantly shocked. How could a young man on the 5th level of martial realm exert such power? A trap. They fell into a trap. The same thought occurred to the three of them. The power of one strike made them all horrified. Such strength was too chilling. Retreat. The three of them had cooperated for many years and had a tacit understanding with each other. They resolutely gave up the action and rushed out. The dark courtyard and the bitter cold wind had become ghastly and horrible in their eyes. The biting chill spread uncontrollably in their hearts. Endless killing intent was hidden in the darkness. It was a trap that had been set for a long time. Bang! Suddenly, a shrill cry sounded out. The old man in the darkness seemed as if he'd been blasted by a cannonball, and he was blasted flying. After that, he crashed through the wall and became completely motionless. Run! Du Shurao was so scared that his soul almost left his body. But at this moment, a cyan blade suddenly appeared, which was so dazzling in the darkness. It is indeed an ambush. The target is not only one person. Du Shurao roared and a slender awl appeared in his hand. He fiercely hacked at the old man. Bang! 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 In the darkness there was a sound of collision and sparks flew in the courtyard. Du Shurao was trapped. Without looking back, Black Widow knew that Du Shurao was in danger. She had no time to care about that. The old man was dead and Du Shurao was dying. She had to escape now. As long as she could escape from this gloomy and horrible courtyard, Black Widow believed that she could definitely fight her way out. Whoosh! Her figure swayed in the air and flew out. She was a little relieved. This action was definitely the most dangerous one in years. Until now, they had not even seen the shadow of their opponent. Such a trap made her feel terrified. Your companions are all staying here. How can you just leave like this? Suddenly, a quiet voice sounded, which sounded ethereal in the dark night. Black Widow's heart sank to the bottom. P.S. Thank you, Brother Black Eye and Cold Heart, for your gift. At 12 o'clock, brothers and sisters, today is the last day of the month and the 10th watch begins. I only ask for monthly vote. Please fight with me to the end. Chapter 79. A delicate and young figure walked out of the darkness. It was obviously a little girl. Her white chin was glistening in the dim starlight. Was her opponent such a little girl? Black Widow couldn't believe it. Whoosh! Suddenly, Black Widow felt a sharp pain on the back of her neck, as if being clamped by an iron clamp. She lost all her strength and was lifted up. From the beginning to the end, she had no time to react at all. Black Widow's heart was filled with great horror. She had the cultivation of the 7th level of martial realm, and was a famous professional killer in Donglin town. She was experienced in fighting, but it was the first time that she had been defeated so easily, and the opponent was just a little girl. How could it be? Black Widow was in a trance. Soon, Xia Ji returned home with Black Widow. She threw Black Widow on the ground and looked at the center of the courtyard. There, Lin Sun was fighting fiercely with Du Shurao. The air was buzzing and the dust was flying. Lin Sun swung his sky breacher. The brilliant cyan saber light was fierce, swift and clean, displaying the 6-word saber play to the extreme. But his opponent, Du Shurao, was not ordinary. On the contrary, Du Shurao's fighting capacity was more fierce and fearless than Lin Sun's. Du Shurao held a slender awl in his hand. His moves were light and tricky, so Lin Sun had to choose to dodge and defend sometimes. Xia Ji stood on one side of the courtyard and watched quietly, without any intention to help. Beside her, the Black Widow had also completely given up on the thought of escaping. Her expression kept changing as she watched the battle in the field. Who do you think will win? Hearing the voice, the Black Widow was startled. She glanced at Xia Ji. She couldn't see her face clearly, but she felt that the little girl beside her was like a mountain, suffocating her. She didn't dare to move at all. Taking a deep breath, Black Widow gritted her teeth and said, Du Shurao is on the 7th level of martial realm, and his fighting skill, Rolling Cloud Sting, has reached the level of precision in martial Tao. But that boy is only on the 5th level of martial realm. Although his saber play is exquisite, he obviously lacks fighting experience. If there is no accident, Black Widow didn't dare to say anything more. In her opinion, even if Du Shurao won this battle, it would be difficult for him to escape death, because this mysterious and powerful little girl was still by his side. Black Widow couldn't help but feel a sense of despair when she thought of this. Not to mention Du Shao, I'm afraid I won't be able to survive this time as well. She glanced around and saw a corpse lying in the corner of the courtyard, in front of a collapsed wall. It was her other companion, Old Frown. This made Black Widow's heart churn again. With the cultivation of the 8th level of martial realm, Frowning Elder's fighting capacity was extremely strong, far beyond that of ordinary people. Years ago, he had successfully assassinated a practitioner on the 9th level of martial realm, which made Frowning Elder famous and a senior killer in Donglin Town. Yet now, Old Frown, who was capable of causing countless people to be unable to eat or sleep, had transformed into a corpse. How could this little girl's combat prowess be so terrifying? Black Widow felt an irrepressible sense of loss. There will be no accident. Your companion is bound to lose this battle. Xia Ji stared at the battlefield and said calmly, "Don't you see that Lin Sun has gradually adapted to the battle? He is about to make a breakthrough." Breakthrough? Black Widow's heart shook fiercely. Looking at the battlefield, she found that the lad seemed to be suppressed, but as the battle went on, his sabersmanship became more and more condensed, and his temperament became more and more serious. In particular, his chi was like smoke rising to the sky, boiling like a torrent. Every time he exerted his strength, there was a rumbling sound of thunder. Wisps of white mist pervaded his body, which was a sign that his blood and chi were about to be burned, and it was also a sign that he was about to reach the level of blood burning, the 6th level of martial realm. He is going to make a breakthrough in the battle. This is a level that can only be achieved when his cultivation foundation is extremely solid. Black Widow was shocked. She had only noticed the dreadfulness of Xia Ji and didn't pay much attention to Lin Sun. But now, seeing such a scene, she suddenly realized that she had underestimated this lad. With the cultivation of the 5th level of the martial realm, it was incredible that he could hold on until now under Du Shurao's attack. At least if he were an ordinary cultivator at the 5th level of the martial realm, he would have been easily killed by Du Shurao. But now, judging from the fighting chi he showed, it seemed that he was going to make a breakthrough in the battle. Those who could achieve this step could almost be called peerless geniuses. As far as Black Widow knew, Wu Lingsong, who ranked 2nd in the Empire's Nation Test 3 years ago, had made a breakthrough in the battle and reached the Gang Spirit realm. Even the Emperor of the Empire praised Wu Lingsong as the one who ranked 1st in the world's martial arts luck. The 1st place in the Nation Test was Shai Yutong, the young Sword King, and the 3rd place was Song Xinglia. Both of them were well-known talents in the world, but only Wu Lingsong could win such praise from the Emperor. Although the young man in front of him was only at the 5th level of martial realm and was far from being a match for Wu Lingsong, the fact that he could show signs of leveling up in the battle was already shocking enough. Black Widow was overwhelmed with emotions. A lad and a little girl, one more horrible than the other. Compared with them, even she couldn't help but feel frustrated. They were really incomparable. Your companion is going to lose. Xia Ji's sudden words awakened Black Widow. When she looked at the battlefield, she found that although Du Shurao's attacks were still extremely fierce, he was gradually unable to suppress Lin Sun. Du Shurao kept roaring. His long and narrow face was full of shock and anger. It seemed that he also couldn't believe that his opponent was so tenacious. Boom! With a long roar, Du Shurao suddenly thrust the awl in his palm, ready to fight desperately. At the same time, Lin Sun's skin suddenly glowed with a dazzling red color, as if there was a furnace suddenly erupting in his body. In an instant, the aura in his entire body suddenly rose explosively. It was like he'd been reborn, and he'd been reborn to become a completely different person. He made a breakthrough. The Black Widow's heart skipped a beat and she was in a daze. Such a rare thing had actually been done by this young man. Impossible! You. Du Shurao also seemed to be frightened by this sudden scene. His ferocious face was full of endless unwillingness. Bang! At the same time, the saber light in Lin Sun's hand fiercely chopped away the awl in Du Shurao's hand. The terrible power made Du Shurao's wrist crack. He screamed and flew out fiercely. Puff! Lin Sun jumped forward and cut off Du Shurao's throat with a clean cut. A touch of scarlet hot blood suddenly burst out and sprinkled in the night, which was sad and beautiful. Hoo-hoo! Lin Sun gasped for breath. He looked at Xia Ji and directly sat cross-legged on the ground, meditating with all his strength. The battle just now lasted for a long time and was full of unpredictable dangers. It was completely a battle between life and death. Even Lin Sun had to admit that Du Shurao was absolutely the strongest opponent he had met so far. Not only was Du Shurao's cultivation 2 levels higher than Lin Sun's, but Du Shurao's fighting experience was also extremely shrewd, far beyond that of ordinary practitioners. In the end of the battle, Lin Sun's spiritual energy was almost exhausted, which was extremely dangerous. Fortunately, at the last moment, he finally seized the opportunity to break through at the critical moment and turned the situation around. But now, although Lin Sun killed Du Shurao, he made a breakthrough in the battle, which made the blood in his body burn like a boiling furnace. The soaring spiritual energy was more like a runaway wild horse, rampaging in his body. If he didn't control it as soon as possible, he would be in danger of being possessed by the devil. In the night, Lin Sun looked serious and calm. He had devoted himself to cultivation. Black Widow didn't care about this. She stared at Du Shurao's body dully, and her beautiful face looked dejected and helpless in the night. After Old Frown, even Du Shurao was dead. If she had known this earlier, she wouldn't have made this assassination deal. The Black Widow thought bitterly. Next, it should be her turn, right? If you tell me who sent you here, I will let you go immediately, Xia Ji said softly, her voice still tranquil and ethereal. But when Black Widow heard it, she felt a chill all over her body, knowing that death was not far away. I'm just an assassin who helps my employer assassinate the target. We can't know the identity of my employer. Just kill me if you want. Black Widow looked pale and her voice was depressed. She really didn't know. Even if Lin Sun didn't believe her, she had nothing to say. From the moment she became an assassin, she had been ready to accept death if she failed the task. This was a test that every qualified assassin had to face. Xia Ji said after a moment of silence, "You can go now." For a moment, Black Widow almost doubted that she had heard it wrong. After a long time, she cried out involuntarily, "You want to let me go?" "It's meaningless to kill you," Xia Ji said indifferently. Black Widow thought that Lin Sun was soft-hearted, but when she heard this reason, she found bitterly that Lin Sun didn't take her seriously at all. What did it mean by meaningless? It meant that even if she died, she was worthless to others. "Thank you." Black Widow kept silent for a long time, stood up and bowed to Xia Ji. Then she pointed at the bodies of Du Shurao and Old Frown in the distance and said, "They are both dead. Can I take their bodies away and bury them?" Xia Ji glanced at her with a little surprise and nodded. "That would be great." The Black Widow bowed deeply again and quickly disappeared into the boundless night with the 2 corpses. Clan of Wu? Or Lian Fei? Xia Ji quietly guarded Lin Sun, standing in the deep night without saying a word. Her dark pupils were full of indifference and coldness. In the past 10 days, she and Lin Sun were also waiting for the news and a chance to kill Lian Fei. Unfortunately, according to the information brought back by the spies sent by Fatty Diao, Lian Fei had been hiding in Donglin's school and never went out. But she didn't expect that before she and Lin Sun took action, the other side couldn't help sending out killers. Whoever he is, he must pay the price of death. The little girl raised her head. A few strands of black hair peeking out from under the brim of the hat were flying in the cold wind. A hint of killing intent flashed across her quiet and beautiful white face in the darkness. Chapter 80. Donglin School. In the early morning, the sun was shining brightly in the school, and the plants were luxuriant. Students in navy blue uniforms rushed to the canteen in groups of 2 or 3. When Lien Fei walked out of the dormitory, his eyes were bloodshot and his eyebrows were tightly knitted. He stayed up all night waiting for a message. But until now, he still didn't receive any news. Did an accident happen last night? This doubt hit his mind from time to time like a tide, torturing Lien Fei for a whole night. Lien Fei, how's the preparation? A charming young girl walked over from afar. She was wearing a fitted school uniform, and she seemed to be in high spirits as she walked. Preparation for what? Lien Fei was stunned. The girl was Yao Susu, his classmate, who had always admired him. Do you forget that the county test is in 10 days? Yao Susu rebuked. Oh, Lien Fei patted his forehead and said with a smile, do I need to prepare for it? It's just a test of age and cultivation. I'm sure I can pass it smoothly. Yao Susu walked side by side with Lien Fei and said, don't be careless. You are 15 years old this year, which is not an advantage in terms of age. I heard that there are 3,000 people in our Donglin school who want to take part in the county test, but only 1,000 are admitted. If we add other applicants in Donglin town, the elimination rate will be even higher. Lien Fei said absent-mindedly, my age is indeed a disadvantage, but I have reached the 5th level of martial realm, which is undoubtedly an advantage over others. I think I won't be eliminated in the county test. Yao Susu giggled. She liked Lien Fei's confident look. As they talked, they had arrived at the canteen. The large canteen was already full of students. The breakfast was rich, consisting of special 8 treasures spiritual porridge and several kinds of green spiritual vegetables, which tasted good. The students of Donglin School were very young. The youngest was only 5 or 6 years old, and the oldest was only 15 years old. Donglin School was an official school, not a local force. It was set up to select talents for the county test of the empire. Students over 15 years old could not participate in the county test, and naturally would not be enrolled by Donglin School. At this time, many students in the canteen were talking while eating, which was very lively. The topics of discussion were almost all related to the county test that would begin in 10 days. Lien Fei was not interested in these, and he lowered his head to eat silently. Yao Susu found something wrong with Lien Fei. She couldn't help saying, you seem to have something on your mind. Lien Fei nodded and then explained patiently, don't worry, it's just a small matter. Yao Su's background was not simple. It was said that her family had a great influence in Green Maple County. Green Maple County governed 12 prefectures and Donglin Town was one of them. In other words, Donglin Town was also under the jurisdiction of Green Maple County. Lien Fei was going to participate in the state examinations in Green Maple County in the future. Moreover, Yao Susu was very fond of him. Under such circumstances, he naturally did not dare to slight her. Yao Susu said with concern, Lien Fei, if you have any trouble, you can tell me. Although my family is not in Donglin Town, I still have a lot of connections. Lien Fei smiled and said, don't worry. Don't tell me you don't believe in the man you like? Yao Susu's face turned red, and she said softly, glib tongue. With this interruption, Yao Susu forgot to continue asking. After the meal, when they walked out of the cafeteria, a middle-aged man came in a hurry with a hint of anxiety on his face. When he saw Lien Fei, he was about to say something, but was stopped by Lien Fei's eyes. Then Lien Fei said to Yao Susu with a smile, a friend is looking for me. Would you like to wait for me in the school? Yao Susu nodded, then turned around and left. Watching the girl's back disappear, Lien Fei's smile suddenly disappeared. He said to the middle-aged man, why did you come so late? As he said, he had led the middle-aged man to a remote corner. The middle-aged man was called Shui Yong, an informant sent by the clan of Wu to contact Lien Fei. I just got the news. Shui Yong sighed. This morning, Black Widow returned the double deposit and admitted that the task was a failure. His words made Lien Fei stiff all over, and his face kept changing. The worst result had come. How could it be possible? Lien Fei tried hard to restrain his anxiety. That guy is just at the 5th level of martial realm. We've spent a lot of money to invite Black Widow, Du Shirao, and Old Frown. Not to mention dealing with that guy, it's enough for us to kill an expert at the 9th level of martial realm. How could we fail? Shui Yong said with a gloomy face, It's absolutely true. I heard that. Du Shirao and Old Frown have completely failed, and will never appear again. Lien Fei gasped and felt cold all over. After a long time, he suddenly had an idea and said, Is there a master helping that boy? Shui Yong said, Although Black Widow didn't say it directly, I guess so. Lien Fei asked anxiously, Could it be Keystone business? What he was most worried about was Keystone business, which was one of the top forces in the empire. Even in Donglin town, no one dared to provoke it. As far as he knew, Keystone business had even fallen out with the clan of Wu in order to protect Lin Sun, which made the clan of Wu dare not act rashly. If not, Lien Fei would not have been pushed out by the clan of Wu to take the lead to deal with Lin Sun. Lien Fei knew that the clan of Wu was making use of him, but he had to accept it in order to avenge his father's death. Besides, he really needed the help of the clan of Wu. Otherwise, he, a student of Donglin School, could not shake the mountain of Keystone business alone. Hearing the words, Keystone business, Shui Yong narrowed his eyes and said, It's not certain yet. It's up to you to make a decision. Lien Fei was stunned and then sneered in his heart. He knew that this was the clan of Wu's way of shirking responsibility. If Keystone business really blamed him, he could only bear the consequences. This was the agreement reached between Lien Fei and the clan of Wu. However, Lien Fei wasn't willing to be used like this. He took a few deep breaths, gritted his teeth, and said, Since it has already happened, the other party must have been alerted. If it's according to my decision, we should immediately send more forces to end this once and for all. Hearing this, the gloomy look on Shui Yong's face suddenly disappeared, and he laughed. I heard that shopkeeper Wu Deong of the clan of Wu also thinks so. Great minds think alike. Lien Fei sneered again in his heart. Great minds think alike? Obviously, they have already figured out a countermeasure, but they need me to show up. Lien Fei said bluntly, In this case, what else did shopkeeper Wu Deong say? Shui Yong said, Assassins can no longer be hired. Now with the death of Du Shirao and Old Scowling, it has caused a lot of wave. I'm afraid that the assassins in the underworld will not dare to get involved again. After a pause, he changed the topic and said, However, we can hire some ruthless gangsters instead of assassins. Lien Fei asked thoughtfully, What do you mean? Shui Yong smiled meaningfully. Lin Sun now lives in the civilian area, where there are many underground gangs. Coincidentally, he is the leader of the largest gang, Tiger Liu. It is said that he is a ruthless man who cares about money more than his life. What's more, Tiger Liu seems to be very old, but he is a veritable practitioner in the early stage of gang spirit realm. Lien Fei was shocked. Ask a practitioner in the gang spirit realm to take action? I'm afraid it will cost a lot, right? Is it worth it? Shui Yong showed a fierce look. Du Shirao, Old Scowling and Black Widow can't do anything to Lin Sun even if they take action together, so we can only ask Tiger Liu to take action. We must cut the Gordian knot with a knife. The longer we delay, the more disadvantageous it will be for us. Speaking of this, he suddenly realized something and said with a smile, Of course, it depends on whether you agree or not, child. Lien Fei dared not to agree. He said coldly, That's the best. Let's see whether Tiger Liu is a real tiger. Shui Yong didn't delay and left with a smile. Looking at his back disappearing, Lien Fei couldn't help showing a strong sneer. What bullshit, clan of Wu? Afraid of the power of Keystone business, you can only use me as a knife. When I become successful in the future, your clan of Wu will be the first one to be attacked. When Lien Fei returned to the school, Yao Susu had already reserved a place for him. Looking at Yao Susu's pretty face, Lien Fei couldn't help showing a bright smile. Whether he could become successful in the future depended on whether he could control Yao Susu Commoner District, Courtyard 49. Sitting under the old locust tree with a cup of hot tea in his arms, Lin Sun said in surprise, "Did you let that Black Widow go?" Xia Ji sat quietly on the opposite side, reading a book called Records of the Empire's Past Years. The warm winter sunshine sprinkled on her quiet and beautiful little face, full of holy aura. "Well, they are just assassins who work for money. It doesn't make much sense to kill them," Xia Ji said casually. Indeed, it didn't make much sense. Lin Sun thought for a while and appreciated Xia Ji's way of doing things. She knew what she should do and what she shouldn't. The county test will be held in 10 days. Xia Ji suddenly raised her head and glanced at Lin Sun. "Yes." Lin Sun smiled. "I am less than 14 years old this year. Last night, I broke through to the 6th level of martial realm. I think it should be no problem for me to pass the county test." "Speaking of this," he suddenly said, "by the way, do you want to take part in it?" Xia Ji shook her head. "I'm not interested." Lin Sun didn't insist anymore. Xia Ji had always been very independent. Although she would follow his ideas on everything, Lin Sun didn't intend to go against her heart. "What are you going to do about the clan of Wu? What happened last night should be done by them," Xia Ji asked. "Lien Fei has never left Donglin School. He is very smart. I'm afraid it's impossible to kill him first." Lin Sun was also a little surprised. He was the enemy who killed Lien Fei's father, but this guy could bear it and hide in Donglin School obediently. His patience and intelligence were not simple. While they were talking, someone came to visit. Lin Sun opened the door and saw a glamorous woman in a short black leather skirt with a hot figure in front of him. Black Widow. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. What was she doing here? Chapter 81. Black Widow didn't come for revenge. On the contrary, she came to deliver a message. "I heard that Tiger Liu will send a group of subordinates to deal with you tonight. If you believe me, please leave here as soon as possible." After saying this, Black Widow left in a hurry. Lin Sun was in a daze. He closed the door and said with a little emotion, "This woman is grateful. Unfortunately, she became an assassin." Xia Ji said seriously, "It seems that yesterday's failure didn't make them restrain themselves. Instead, it made them more determined to eradicate us." Lin Sun became serious and frowned. "I just wonder who Tiger Liu is." "I know," Xia Ji said casually. "This guy is one of the few strong practitioners in the gang spirit realm in the civilian area. He is also the leader of the largest gang in the civilian area, the Black Tiger Gang. There are thousands of gang members under his command, among which there are more than 300 practitioners." She took a sip of tea and continued, "I planned to annex the Black Tiger Gang after a while, but I didn't expect that they came to me voluntarily." Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. "I see. In order to deal with us, the clan of Wu invited a gang leader in the gang spirit realm. They really think highly of us." Xia Ji said disdainfully, "Tiger Liu is nothing. I heard that he broke through the gang spirit realm in his 50s, which shows how poor his aptitude for cultivation is. He always values money more than his life. It's not surprising that the clan of Wu asked him to do this." For the first time, Lin Sun found that Xia Ji's original decision didn't seem to be a mistake. She integrated the Shuangmu gang and annexed the two nearby gangs. What she got was not only rich trophies but also various related intelligence. These intelligence let Lin Sun know the specific power of the clan of Wu in the shortest time. And it was also the intelligence that made Xia Ji reveal the details of Tiger Liu at the first time. "Do you believe the news of Black Widow?" Lin Sun asked. Xie Zhi stood up and said, "I'll send someone to check Tiger Liu's territory, and then we'll know whether the news is true or not." Saying this, she walked out of the courtyard. Just 30 minutes later, Xie Zhi came back and confirmed that the news was true. Tiger Liu was mobilizing people. Obviously, he was going to make a big move. Anyone who was not blind could see it. Knowing all this, Lin Sun said, "It seems that if we don't leave this place as soon as possible, there will be a fierce battle tonight." Summer Solstice asked, "Are you afraid?" A killing intent surged in Lin Sun's black eyes. "I've been attacked one after another. If I don't fight back, I'll look too useless." Xie Zhi nodded and said, "I think so too." In the evening, Lin Sun was ready. He was still dressed in a coarse hemp robe, but there was more to it than meets the eye. Firstly, he wore a pair of dark gray-colored pauldrons on his shoulders, and it was called Cloud Mountain. The fifth Earth Spirit marking pattern was inscribed on it, and it possessed an extremely excellent defensive ability. A pair of green wristguards were attached to his wrists. They were called Army Breaker, and were engraved with Vast Flow Spiritual Tattoo. Not only could they protect the wrists, but when used with weapons, they could also effectively mobilize the spiritual power in the body and increase the power of the release of spiritual power. On his upper body, he wore a layer of soft armor called Overlapping Scales, which was covered with layers of fine iron. Together with the Thousand Vortex Spiritual Tattoo, it could absorb and dissolve the opponent's attack power. It was also a defensive spiritual weapon. On his feet, he wore a pair of Flying Spirit Boots, which was engraved with Strong Wind Spiritual Tattoo, which could enhance the agility and speed of body movement. In addition, Lin Sun also carried a big bow, which was black and rough. The bow body was smelted from more than 10 kinds of metals, and the bowstring was tanned from the spine tendons of the spike-tailed mammoth. This bow was called Spiritual Arm, and it was engraved with Gold-Splitting Spiritual Tattoo. In addition, there were 30 scorching arrows, inscribed with Explosive Flames Spiritual Tattoo, hidden in Lin Sun's storage ring. There was also a flaming spirit saber on Lin Sun's waist. These were all standard spiritual weapons, which were extremely common in the market. But since they were spiritual weapons, their value was naturally high. But Lin Sun was different. These spiritual weapons were all personally refined by him in the past 10 days, and he only consumed a lot of ordinary weapons and spiritual ink, without spending any money. It was worth mentioning that Lin Sun only failed once when refining these equipment, and the reason for the failure was that a mouse suddenly ran into the room at that time, distracting Lin Sun, which led to a slight mistake when inscribing the spiritual tattoos. Anyway, if other spiritual tattooists knew such a near-perfect success rate, they would definitely go crazy. But for Lin Sun, he had been used to it, so he didn't feel much surprise. Under the setting sun, Lin Sun was ready to go and armed himself to the extreme. Xie Zhi, on the other hand, was much simpler. She still carried the white bone spear and wore a black windbreaker, with a hat covering her beautiful and fair face. "Let's go." Lin Sun took a deep breath and walked out. "Wait, someone is coming." Xie Zhi frowned, and her ethereal voice was filled with a hint of killing intent. Walking in the narrow and dark alley, Gu Liang was a little annoyed. A few days ago, his father Gu Yanping asked him to find the child who sold the flaming spirit saber. He thought it would be easy to find him, but he didn't expect that he found nothing after running all over the prosperous areas of Donglin town these days. It was normal that Gu Liang didn't dare to ask for help, because he knew that all the major businesses in Donglin town had been keeping an eye on the movements of Golden Hall. Even Xiao Yuanzhong, the shopkeeper of Treasure House, directly spread the news that he wanted to dig out the mysterious spiritual tattooist at a high price. Under such circumstances, Gu Liang was sure that the eyes of many spies in the town were focused on Golden Hall, because only Golden Hall knew who made the flaming spirit saber. Therefore, Gu Liang was extremely careful every time he went out to avoid being followed. But unfortunately, It was not until today that he finally realized that his way of finding the person was wrong. Thanks to his father's reminder, Lin Sun was only wearing the most common coarse linen clothes at that time, which showed that he was obviously not from a rich family. Moreover, as a practitioner, Lin Sun didn't hesitate to sell a flaming spirit saber in exchange for money, which showed that his life must be a little poor. Inferring from these details, Lin Sun should live in the civilian area instead of the prosperous area of the town. Sure enough, Gu Liang soon inquired about Courtyard 49 in the depths of an alley in the civilian area according to his father's inference. A new tenant, a teenager, had moved in. This confirmed Gu Liang's thoughts one by one. Similarly, this was also the reason why Gu Liang was annoyed. If he paid more attention to some details, how could these days' efforts be in vain? Soon, Gu Liang dispelled his annoyance. Seeing Courtyard 49, he immediately went forward and knocked on the door. The door was opened, revealing a familiar face, which made Gu Liang excited. Sure enough, he came to the right place. I'm Gu Liang, and the shopkeeper of Golden Hall is my father. Nice to meet you, child. Gu Liang saluted. Lin Sun was stunned. He didn't expect that the son of the shopkeeper of Golden Hall would come to him at this time. Immediately, he understood Gu Liang's intention and said, "Your Excellency, are you here to buy a spiritual weapon?" Gu Liang was also stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Lin Sun to be so direct. Then he smiled calmly and said, "Child, you have a sharp eye. I'm here for this purpose at the request of my father." Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, "Not now. I have something urgent to deal with today. How about I go to Golden Hall in person another day?" Gu Liang finally found Lin Sun. How could he be willing to leave? He said, "Well, how about I stay here and wait for you to come back?" Lin Sun frowned and said, "I advise you to leave as soon as possible. It won't be long before there are many changes here, and I'm afraid you'll be killed." Gu Liang was shocked. Seeing that Lin Sun didn't seem to be joking, he thought for a long time and finally nodded. "In that case, I'll come again tomorrow." After that, he turned around and left. Almost at the same time as he left, Lin Sun closed the gate and jumped out of the wall behind the yard with Xia Ji. They walked quickly along an alley and soon disappeared. It was 10 o'clock in the evening. The setting sun was like fire and blood. A flock of crows were cawing in the air, which was harsh and horrifying. When the night was about to fall, the vicinity of Courtyard 49 was deserted. Even the barking of stray cats and dogs had disappeared. Only the cold wind as sharp as a knife made a whining sound in the air, as if weeping and complaining. It wasn't long before this deathly silent and oppressive atmosphere was broken by a wave of footsteps. If one were to look down from the sky, one would be able to see a dense expanse of figures surging over from all directions like tidewater and converging towards Courtyard 49. There were many of them, and every one of them was dressed in martial attire. Their expressions were fierce, and there were at least 500 to 600 of them. If there were experienced people here, they would be able to see that there were many cultivators among these people. Needless to say, they were all members of Black Tiger Gang. When the night came and darkness covered the sky of Courtyard 49, Tiger Liu appeared there at the same time. Although Tiger Liu was in his 60s, he was burly and strong. His long gray hair was meticulously combed. There were many scars on his face, which made him look extremely ferocious. His light brown eyes were as fierce and cunning as a wolf's. Among the underground forces in the civilian area, Black Tiger Gang was the most powerful. In the Black Tiger Gang, Tiger Liu had the highest status. In the eyes of many people, Tiger Liu could even be called the underground king of the civilian area. At this time, Tiger Liu, with his hands behind his back, looked at the closed gate of Courtyard 49, and a cold curve appeared at the corner of his mouth. This time, someone sent him a good spiritual weapon and a large sum of 1,000 silver coins, intending to let him kill a teenager named Lin Sun. Tiger Liu agreed without hesitation. But he was not stupid. Since the other side paid such a huge price, it showed that the target must be difficult to deal with. Therefore, he not only came in person, but also brought 500 gang members. Tiger Liu believed that with such a force, it was enough to wipe out the entire civilian area, and it should be more than enough to deal with a teenager. Grand Master, the nearby brothers sent the news that the target didn't go out today and must still be at home at this time. A spy came forward and reported quickly. Tiger Liu nodded and waved his hand. Do it? The cold and austere voice was like a signal, opening the curtains of the battle in this dark night. P.S. Thanks to Crazy Tsunami, Dark Night Carnival, and my old brothers Peach Blossom and Qingdong for their support and vote. Next update, 4:30. Chapter 82. Boom. The closed door was blasted open, and a group of ferocious men from Black Tiger Gang rushed in. At the same time, hundreds of people separated and completely blocked the entire courtyard 49. Not to mention people, even a fly couldn't fly out. Seeing this, Tiger Liu couldn't help but nod with satisfaction. His subordinates were all elites of the gang, shrewd and neat. Tiger Liu didn't rush in. Although the target was just a teenager, he was very clear that the employer paid a spiritual weapon and 1,000 silver coins, which proved that the teenager was absolutely not easy to deal with. Under such circumstances, Tiger Liu naturally wouldn't take risks before he figured out the situation. Time passed little by little. Tiger Liu suddenly frowned. His subordinates had rushed into the target's house, but there was no sound of fighting until now. Was there an accident? Just as this thought came to Tiger Liu's mind, a subordinate hurried to report, Grand Master, the target is not at home. Tiger Liu's face darkened. Have you searched everywhere? The subordinate said indignantly, We've searched everywhere, but we couldn't even find a single copper coin, let alone a person. I think the target has already smelled the news and fled early when he saw the situation was not good. At this time, those who rushed into Courtyard 49 had returned, their faces full of disappointment. Seeing this, Tiger Liu suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. He said in a cold voice, A group of useless trash. Go and kill all the spies stalking here. How dare they ruin my plan? Yes. Immediately, more than a dozen strong men took the order and left. Grand Master, it seems that the target has indeed fled early. This time we will return without accomplishing anything. Someone sighed. Tiger Liu's face was as gloomy as water. He came here with a murderous look, but he didn't catch the target. He was quite aggrieved. Should he admit his failure like this? Tiger Liu was extremely unwilling. Grand Master, bad news. Bad news. Suddenly, a panicked voice sounded from a distance. A spy almost stumbled over, causing a lot of people present to be agitated. The target had already fled. Could there be worse news? Tiger Liu was inexplicably angry. He kicked the spy and scolded, Don't be so flustered. Are you King here to deliver news or to announce the death? The spy rolled on the ground in pain and wailed, Gang leader, it's really bad. Tiger Liu was so angry that he wanted to chop this coward. He gritted his teeth and said, Tell me what's wrong with you. Do you really want me to kill you? The scout had a long face and said with a trembling voice, Our base has been attacked. What? As if struck by lightning, Tiger Liu's face changed dramatically. The expressions of the other gang members present changed abruptly, and a thought surged into their hearts in unison. Someone actually dared to take advantage of the situation? In this civilian district, who had eaten the heart of a bear and the heart of a leopard, and dared to move against the Black Tiger Gang? Damn it, looks like someone is tired of living. They want to take advantage of us while we are out of our nest. Could it be Humanzi from the Azure Bamboo Gang? This guy has always been against our Black Tiger Gang. Maybe it's really him this time. Damn it, this Humanzi is courting death. A wave of angry curses rang out, and the place was in a mess. At this moment, it was revealed that these gangsters were a bunch of bandits who could not be seen in public. They were far from being comparable to the strict military discipline of the army. They could only be described as a motley crew. "Shut up, all of you!" Suddenly, a thunderous roar sounded, shocking all the people present. Tiger Liu's face was ferocious and full of killing intent. He gritted his teeth and said, "What the fuck is the situation now? Why don't you hurry back with me to kill the enemy? Do you have to wait until the base is completely destroyed?" Everyone suddenly woke up as if waking up from a dream. Back to the time when Tiger Liu led his subordinates to Courtyard 49, in a spacious area in the southwest of the civilian district. There was a magnificent building here, like a castle rising from the ground. Compared with the narrow and dilapidated houses nearby, it was like a crane in a flock of chickens. This was the base of the Black Tiger Gang. In the past, ordinary people did not dare to come here. It was late, but the Black Tiger Gang was brightly lit as if it were daytime. Although Tiger Liu took 500 gang members away, there were still hundreds of people guarding the base. On a house opposite, Lin Sun hid carefully. Looking at the base of the Black Tiger Gang dozens of meters away, he whispered, "Have you hidden all the valuable things in your house?" "Yes." Xia Zhi's voice sounded in the darkness, ethereal and ethereal. Even with Lin's soul power, he could not perceive her specific position. Such a way of concealing one's breath and shadow was amazing. Lin even had a feeling that Xia Zhi was born to belong to the darkness, illusory and elusive. "We don't have much time. It's time to act," Xia Zhi reminded. Lin Sun took a deep breath, and a killing intent flashed in his black eyes. He said, "Let's start." Swish. Before his voice died away, he took off the spiritual arm bow, squatted and took a wrong step. Exerting strength in his arms, he pulled the bow like a full moon. A scorching sun arrow tore the air like lightning and suddenly shot out. The whole movement was as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. In an instant, in the base of the Black Tiger Gang dozens of meters away, a guard standing guard in front of the window on the second floor fell down and died on the spot, as if struck by lightning. At the same time, with a boom, a ball of raging fire exploded in that position, burning fiercely. This was the power of the explosion after the scorching sun arrow was triggered. The flame could cover an area of 30 meters, which was extremely vicious. The fire rushed up, causing a lot of exclamations. The guards distributed in the base of the Black Tiger Gang were all alarmed, causing an uproar. On the top of a house in the distance, Lin Sun looked calm. After shooting the first arrow, he didn't stop. Looking for opportunities, he quickly shot more than 10 arrows. Bang! 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 The scorching sun arrows, like meteors tearing the night, drew different trajectories with ear-piercing screeches, and instantly disappeared into the base of the Black Tiger Gang. The base was in chaos. Many figures ran around like headless flies. Obviously, without Tiger Liu, they became leaderless and at a loss. This gave Lin Sun the best hunting opportunity. The scorching sun arrows fell one after another, producing thunderous explosions. Each arrow would kill one person, and the raging scorching sun swept and raged. In the blink of an eye, the base of the Black Tiger Gang seemed to have turned into a sea of fire. Screams, roars, and the sound of raging flames were everywhere. Most of the members of the Black Tiger Gang were ordinary people, and only a small part of them were practitioners. In addition, Tiger Liu went out with the elites of the gang, which made the base extremely fragile. Just one round of arrows was enough to make them flee in panic. However, there was still a small group of practitioners who remained calm. It was obvious that they had encountered an enemy attack. These Xiuzha had hidden themselves and were waiting to attack. They knew very well that as long as they held on for a while, Tiger Liu would inevitably return after hearing the news. At that time, no matter how many enemies came, they would suffer the cruelest blow. Listen. Be careful to hide. Kill any intruders without mercy. A burly bearded middle-aged man shouted in a low voice. With his bulging muscles, he stood behind a huge stone pillar like an iron tower with 2 axes in his hands. From this position, he could see the main gate. The main gate was raging with flames dancing in the air. Before long, a small and delicate black figure walked out of the flames. She held a white bone spear and wore a black windbreaker. The brim of her hat covered most of her face, revealing only a small section of her delicate white chin. In the night of the flowing flames, she looked extremely mysterious. A little girl? The burly man frowned. He didn't expect that the enemy would be a little girl. But soon, he calmed down, and a touch of fierceness appeared in his eyes. No matter who it was, as long as they dared to break in, they must die. Xia Ji seemed indifferent to everything around her. She walked straight forward, seemingly slow, but in the blink of an eye, she had entered the hall. When she walked in front of a stone pillar, a sudden shout sounded, "Go to hell!" In the roar, a pair of bright and sharp giant axes smashed down. But when the blow fell, Xia Ji had already disappeared. The burly man's pupils shrank suddenly, and he knew it was not good. But it was too late. With a pu sound, a white bone spear pierced through his chest from behind, and even his heart was shattered by the impact. Immediately, the burly man fell to the ground with his eyes bulging. He died with everlasting regret. When he looked at Xia Ji again, she had already disappeared. Hall leader Lu is dead. Who is that little girl? Why is she so terrible? Where is she? Why is she gone? At this time, when the practitioners hiding in different places in this hall saw that the burly man was killed in one blow, they were all shocked and horrified. It was terrible. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would almost think it was an illusion. They didn't dare to move, and they all raised their vigilance. They only hoped that the Grand Master would come back quickly, otherwise they might not be able to hold on. Suddenly, a scream sounded, and a practitioner hiding on the beam fell to the ground with a puff. There was a bloody hole in his throat, and blood was bursting out. This scene shocked the other cultivators to the point that their bodies trembled. Before they could even see clearly, another of their companions had been killed. Was that little girl a ghost or a mortal? Boom! Soon, the wall on one side of the hall collapsed, and smoke and dust splashed. A practitioner's body lay in it. His bones were broken, and his flesh was badly mutilated. He died miserably. Seeing this, the practitioners hiding in other places could no longer bear this kind of horror. They jumped out with a roar and no longer dared to hide separately. Instead, they began to gather together. It was too terrible. They couldn't see or feel the enemy. The enemy seemed to be invisible, but as time went by, their companions died on the spot one by one. Who would be able to endure this? These practitioners gathered together, about a dozen of them, all with fear on their faces. They were vigilant and uneasy. The fire in the distance kept changing on their ferocious faces. Where was the enemy? Where was he hiding? Chapter 83. The raging flames were burning in all areas of the Black Tiger Gang's lair, and the fire had spread out of control. Some people held on, hoping that Tiger Liu could return in time. But more people chose to escape. It was a mess. For these villains living at the bottom of the society, they didn't know what loyalty was for the sake of survival. When Lin Sun walked into the Black Tiger Gang's lair, he saw a lot of people running around in panic. He didn't chase them, but went straight to the hall. Soon, Lin Sun saw dozens of practitioners waiting in the hall, which was beyond his expectation. Didn't these guys know how to hide? I'll leave these people to you. I have something else to do. At this moment, Xia Ji's voice sounded and then disappeared. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and immediately smiled. He drew out the flaming spirit saber and rushed to the dozens of practitioners instead of retreating. One person and one saber were going to deal with dozens of practitioners. When the practitioners of Black Tiger Gang gathered in the hall saw this, they couldn't help but feel a little absurd. The most important thing was that they were dealing with a teenager. But when they thought of the little girl's horrible means, the absurdity in their hearts suddenly dissipated and they became alert. Maybe this teenager was more powerful than the little girl? Boom! Seeing Lin Sun rushing to him, someone couldn't hold back anymore. He raised a long spear and fiercely stabbed at Lin Sun. The shadow of the spear was as sharp as lightning and contained frightening spiritual energy. This was an overmatch at the 5th level of martial realm. A thought flashed in Lin Sun's mind, but he didn't slow down at all. The blade hummed and shook violently against the opponent's spear. Bang! The horrible power was like a mountain. The opponent was shaken away with his spear and smashed on a stone pillar. Blood spurted from his mouth and nose and he fainted on the spot. At the same time, a saber, a sword, and a hammer came to Lin Sun from different directions. The moves were tricky and ruthless, and the timing was extremely precise. Lin Sun jumped, and the blade suddenly rolled back, turning into a storm vortex with raging flames and a roar. With a bang, the opponent's long saber was cut in two, and his right arm was cut off. He screamed and retreated. The other sword and the hammer were severely knocked away, which made the two practitioners immediately reveal their flaws. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun changed his Tao and chopped down heavily. With a pop, the head of the Xiuzha holding the hammer was smashed and he fell down. The sword-wielding Xiuzha dodged in time and luckily escaped, but he was so scared his face was pale and his soul was about to leave his body. In the blink of an eye, 3 people were killed on the spot. Lin Sun only used the 3 movements of 6-word saberplay, namely shock, spin, and chop. Although his current saberplay could not defeat Xiuzhi, it was relatively speaking. It was more than enough to deal with these practitioners present. What's more, he was now wearing all kinds of spiritual equipment and holding a flaming spirit saber. He was armed to the teeth, and his combat effectiveness was at least 30% stronger than before. On the contrary, few of his opponents were at the 8th level of martial realm. Most of them were at the 5th level of martial realm, which was hardly a threat to Lin. When Lin Sun was at the 5th level of martial realm, he could fight evenly with Du Shirao, who was at the 7th level of martial realm. Now that he had reached the 6th level of martial realm, his combat effectiveness was naturally much stronger than before. Seeing several companions were killed in a flash, the other practitioners of Black Tiger Gang in the hall were shocked and their faces changed suddenly. "Hurry up! Let's kill this boy together!" With a roar, those practitioners moved together. No one dared to hold back anymore. They besieged Lin Sun with ferocious faces. For a time, the hall was full of fighting sounds, which was like a purgatory battlefield. The walls collapsed, the ground cracked, and all kinds of items in the hall had already been turned into powder. Kill! Lin Sun fought with his saber. His figure was as vigorous as a flying eagle. The flaming spirit saber splashed in all directions, and the crimson saber light shot out like a fiery rainbow with terrible destructive power. Although it was the first time for one person to fight against dozens of practitioners, Lin Sun was not flustered at all. His dark eyes were deep and calm, and his delicate and warm face was even calmer. Beneath his calm exterior, however, was a burning desire to fight and kill. Fight! The smell of blood and fire seemed to have magic power, which opened the desire that Lin Sun had never had in his heart. Kill! 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 The boy from the mine prison had long hair flying in the air, and the saber in his hand was like a dragon, which rolled up a bloody storm. The screams of the enemies when they fell were like passionate music, which made Lin Sun more and more arrogant and powerful. The blood of the enemies was like the strongest wine in the world, which made Lin Sun feel a kind of pleasure that he had never had before. At this moment, Lin Sun completely forgot himself and immersed himself in the battle. He forgot the world and all the people in the world. In his eyes there were only enemies. Bang! A practitioner didn't dodge in time and his head was cut off. Clatter! On the other side, a practitioner's legs were cut off, and he fell in a pool of blood in the sea of fire. Boom! A bronze mace suddenly attacked from behind and hit Lin Sun's shoulder, but it was blocked by the Yunshan shoulder armor engraved with Fifth Earth spiritual tattoo. Most of the power was dissolved, but the shoulder bone was still broken. But Lin Sun didn't seem to feel it. He retreated quickly and cut open the belly of the attacker from behind with the saber in his hand. This was a close combat, fierce and tragic. There was no room for hesitation. Life and death could be decided in an instant. At this moment, Lin Sun was not only ruthless to the enemies, but also to himself. He would rather be injured to seize every fleeting opportunity to kill the enemies. The enemies were falling down constantly, and Lin Sun's body was covered with wounds. The blood was spreading and staining his clothes. But his expression never wavered. The flaming spirit saber in his hand was more precise, fierce and stable. Like a god of war who would never fall, he wielded his saber in the blood and fire, deducing the changes of life and death. It seemed that a long time had passed, but it also seemed that it was only a moment. Lin Sun suddenly felt light. When he looked around, there were only 7 or 8 enemies left. Beneath his feet were numerous broken corpses that lay in pools of blood and were being burned by the raging flames, causing the pungent smell of burnt flesh and blood to fill every inch of the ground. More than half of the dozens of enemies had been slaughtered. Lin Sun, who woke up from the battle, realized that he had become so powerful. Yes, perhaps Lin Sun was still in the martial realm, and there was still a long way to go before he reached the gang spirit realm. But compared with the weak one when he stepped into Feiyun village for the first time, Lin Sun had been reborn. The 7 or 8 practitioners on the opposite side seemed to be shocked, and their faces were full of unconcealable panic. They looked at the teenager in front of them as if they were looking at a demon bathed in blood, trembling all over uncontrollably. Yes, they were petrified. Besieged by dozens of people, they couldn't do anything to a teenager on the 6th level of martial realm. What's more, they were all killed by him. What chilled them most was that Lin Sun's killing method was extremely straightforward. He didn't say a word from the beginning to the end. That kind of silence almost suffocated them. What kind of teenager was he on Earth? Step. Lin Sun moved again. He took a step forward, and his footsteps made a dull sound in the pool of blood. In the past, no one would pay attention to this sound at all. But in this silent and oppressive hall, it was like a note that hastened death. The 7 or 8 practitioners were stiff all over, and then they roared in horror and fled out of the hall. They were terrified, and their fighting spirit had collapsed. In the case of death, they dared not struggle at all. Run. They had to run. This teenager was a demon who killed people without blinking an eye. It was so terrible. Lin Sun was in a daze, and then he shook his head. He didn't bother to chase after them. Glancing around, he walked to the depths of the hall. The sharp pain all over his body hit Lin Sun's mind like a tide. After the battle, he found that even though he wore all kinds of spiritual weapons, he still suffered many injuries, such as knife wounds, sword wounds, and internal injuries. These were not important to Lin Sun. As a murderer in the mine prison said, scars were the most glorious feats of a man. What made Lin Sun frown was that after a round of fierce fighting, he had consumed a lot of spiritual energy in his body and couldn't hold on for too long. The most urgent thing was to find Xia Ji as soon as possible. Soon, Lin Sun disappeared into the depths of the hall. Behind him, the walls of the hall collapsed, the stone pillars were destroyed, and the sea of consciousness was burning in a pool of blood. The scene was like purgatory. Outside the hall, the towering fire illuminated the night. Everything indicated that the lair of the Black Tiger Gang had completely fallen. When Tiger Liu returned with a group of subordinates, he saw a towering fire. The lair he had painstakingly managed for many years was completely covered in a sea of fire. For a moment, Tiger Liu's face was extremely livid, and his eyes almost popped out of his eye sockets. Behind him, all his subordinates changed their expressions and cried out involuntarily. When they left, there were still many people left in the lair. Had they all been killed? Boss, you are finally back. A practitioner with disheveled hair and a dirty face rushed over and burst into tears. Who did it? Tiger Liu's voice seemed to be squeezed out from his teeth, revealing endless coldness. It's a teenager and a little girl. The man gnashed his teeth and roared. They not only killed many of our brothers, but also set fire to our territory. Boss, you must avenge our brothers. All the people were in an uproar. The murderers were not from other gangs, but just a teenager and a little girl. How could they destroy their lair with only 2 people? How could it be possible? Where are they? Tiger Liu's face became more livid, and his eyes became bloodshot. It suddenly occurred to him that the target they were supposed to kill was a teenager named Lin Sun. Did Lin Sun not escape, but take the opportunity to harm the Black Tiger gang? At the thought of this, Tiger Liu's heart sank again. They were tricked. It's inside. The practitioner pointed to the lair of Black Tiger gang and said. Tiger Liu's beard and hair stood on end. He couldn't hold back his anger anymore and shouted, "Rush in with me and find these 2 little things. I want to see them alive or dead." Chapter 84. Mutilated corpses were everywhere, and pools of blood were everywhere. The castle-like lair was burned to the point where only an empty frame was left. It was a scene of devastation. Tiger Liu strode forward. Looking at these shocking scenes, he felt a sharp pain in his heart, as if being cut by a knife. These were his subordinates, his painstaking efforts. Now they were destroyed overnight. How could Tiger Liu not be angry? His face was livid, his eyes were bloodshot, and his whole body emitted a horrible aura, as if he wanted to devour people. Soon, he entered the hall. All the subordinates had begun to search for the traces of the enemy, but Tiger Liu was more concerned about another thing. Before long, he came to the end of the hall. It was originally a stone wall, but now a huge hole was broken. Inside the hole, there was another world, and a spiral staircase led to the underground. Damn it! Seeing this, Tiger Liu's face twitched violently. He waved his hand, gritted his teeth, and said, "You all stay here and wait." With that, he rushed into the hole and disappeared along the spiral staircase. Seeing this, the subordinates of the Black Tiger gang who followed him all looked at each other in surprise and doubt. It seems to be the treasure place of the gang leader? Someone lowered his voice. It's more than the treasure place. The wealth collected by the gang leader over the years, as well as the property plundered by the gang, are all piled up here. But it seems that this place has been discovered by the enemy. Voices of discussion arose, and everyone looked gloomy. Had it not been for Tiger Liu's order, they would have rushed in to find out. However, they all knew that no matter whether the treasure place was stolen or not, Tiger Liu, who valued money more than his life, would definitely not let them get close. Alas, we've obviously returned too late. I'm afraid that thief has already fled long ago. Someone sighed, which made the others look more and more gloomy. At the bottom of the spiral staircase was a basement. The 4 walls were inlaid with moonstones, and the soft luster dispelled the darkness. This was the treasure place of the Black Tiger gang. But when Tiger Liu set foot here again and saw the scene in the basement clearly, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. In the large space, there were more than 10 huge bronze chests that were originally filled with gold, silver, jewels, spiritual medicines, and spiritual materials. But now they were all lying on the ground. The bronze locks on the chests were all broken, and the chests were completely empty. Not even a single copper coin was left. It took Tiger Liu decades to collect those treasures, but now they were looted. The feeling of grievance, anger and madness made Tiger Liu's face ferocious. Blue veins stood out on his forehead. He couldn't help roaring, "Damn it!" His voice was like a clap of thunder, causing the walls to tremble. Boom! Suddenly, the innermost corner of the wall collapsed, revealing a bronze door. However, a crack had been forcefully broken open on the door, just enough for people to squeeze through. Seeing this, Tiger Liu was so angry that he trembled all over. His eyes were about to crack and bleed. It was a door of escape that he had personally repaired. It was for the sake of leaving a way out for himself. If there was a day when unpredictable danger really occurred, he would be able to safely escape with his enormous wealth. In order to repair the door, Tiger Liu specially invited a spiritual tattooist to carve a spiritual tattoo lock on the door. In the end, the spiritual tattooist was even killed by Tiger Liu in order to prevent the secret from leaking out. Who would have thought that this door of escape was also discovered and even destroyed? Tiger Liu was so angry that his beard and hair stood on end. His whole body emitted a tyrannical aura, and his face was livid and terrible. Seeing this scene, how could he not understand that the enemy had already taken his wealth and escaped through the door he repaired? Decades of painstaking efforts were all wasted by others in one move. At this moment, Tiger Liu was so angry that he was about to explode. Bastard who deserves 1,000 cuts. Don't let me catch you, or I'll kill you one by one. Tiger Liu roared. Swish. At this moment, a flash of saber light suddenly flashed out from the corner. Like a sudden flash of lightning, it violently attacked Tiger Liu from behind. Tiger Liu was immersed in rage, but his fighting instincts still existed. He sensed danger at the first time, but he didn't dodge. Instead, he suddenly turned around and slapped down with his palm and fingers. Rumble! In an instant, the terrible gang spirit chi became tangible, rumbling like a raging sea, and even the air was shattered and dispersed. Before the saber light approached Tiger Liu, it was fiercely slapped out like a small boat falling into the sea. Bang! A black shadow hit the wall in the distance with a muffled groan. It was Lin Sun. But at this moment, his face was pale, his pupils contracted, and his heart palpitated. Was this the power of a strong practitioner in the gang spirit realm? At that moment, he thought it was an excellent opportunity. Even if he couldn't kill Tiger Liu, he could at least injure him seriously. Unexpectedly, when he was fighting with Tiger Liu, Lin Sun found that he was wrong, ridiculously wrong. As a strong practitioner in the gang spirit realm, Tiger Liu's body was covered with a layer of force field, all of which were transformed by the gang spirit force. It was impossible to break this layer of gang spirit force, let alone get close to him. Just now, Lin Sun only felt that he was like a fish rushing into the sea. Before he could react, he was slapped away by a huge wave. He couldn't even resist and resolve it. This was the horror of a strong practitioner in the gang spirit realm. At this realm, practitioners were covered with dense gang spirit, like an iron wall, full of lethality. Strong practitioners in the martial realm couldn't get close to them at all. Although there was only one realm between the martial realm and the gang spirit realm, there was a world of difference between their strength. It was no different from an ant shaking a mountain. Little bastard! You didn't escape. Ah! Tiger Liu was not surprised but happy. Lin Sun didn't escape. Didn't it mean that there was still a chance to get back his treasures? At this moment, Tiger Liu's mood was full of ups and downs. He was so sad and happy that he could hardly control his emotions. As he spoke, he suddenly broke through the air and clawed at Lin Sun in the distance. Rumble! The dazzling black gang spirit turned into a solid giant claw, covering the air. This was the means of a strong practitioner in the gang spirit realm. He could release the gang spirit outside his body and kill people in the air. Strong practitioners in the martial realm couldn't do this at all. However, Tiger Liu was still in the air. He seemed to notice something and his face suddenly changed. With his rich experience of many years of battles, he almost subconsciously twisted his waist in a weird way. Like a flying snake rising from the land, he gave up on Lin Sun and fiercely punched to one side. At the same time, a white bone spear suddenly appeared. The body of the spear was as smooth as jade, filled with silver starlight, illusory and ethereal. It seemed to be slow, But when Tiger Liu noticed it, the tip of the spear had already reached his eyebrows. Boom! With a loud bang, the terrible spiritual power spread like a storm. More than 10 bronze chests on the ground were swept away in an instant and smashed on the walls, making a dull collision sound. Lin Sun's face suddenly changed, because in his sight, Tiger Liu grabbed the white bone spear and lifted Xie Ji, who was holding the spear, in the air. Sure enough, there is someone else. I knew it. With his level, he couldn't kill his way into my territory. Obviously, the real mastermind of today's disaster is you, little girl. Tiger Liu laughed with a ferocious and cruel face. His light brown eyes were full of cunning. He had dominated the civilian area for decades and still stood strong. How could ordinary people compare with him? Those opponents who once looked down on him were now corpses on the ground. Lin Sun's vulnerable performance made Tiger Liu instantly guess that the boy must have other helpers. Sure enough, he was exposed in just one move. At this moment, Tiger Liu's heart was filled with the pleasure of revenge. Lin Sun's heart was filled with uncontrollable coldness. Tiger Liu was so cunning that he and Xie Ji still underestimated him. Without much delay, Lin Sun subconsciously rushed out to save Xie Ji. But at this moment, Xie Ji suddenly raised her head, revealing her face covered by the hat. At that moment, the whole basement seemed to be dim. The indescribable beautiful face, which seemed not to belong to the world, appeared in front of him at this moment. Lin Sun was slightly dazzled. He felt that Xie Ji's beauty today seemed to be more dazzling than before, and even had a charm that could make the soul sink. Tiger Liu also held his breath, with a trace of trance on his face. Puff! With a muffled sound, Tiger Liu's shocking roar rang in Lin Sun's ears, completely waking him up. When he looked up, he saw that the white bone spear, which was originally held by Tiger Liu, had penetrated Tiger Liu's chest at some point. At the same time, Xie Ji was slapped away by a palm. F***CKU. Lin Sun was so angry that his eyes almost popped out, and a touch of uncontrollable anger surged in his heart. He rushed out violently and chopped at Tiger Liu with his saber. Xie Ji was slapped away, which was like a stab in his heart. The feeling was so strong that Lin Sun completely lost his temper. Lin Sun didn't notice that when he lost his mind in rage, a pair of blood-like vortexes were reflected in the depths of his pupils, under which was an endless abyss. Puff! With one chop, Tiger Liu's head was directly cut off and thrown away, which seemed to be very easy. All this was because Xie Ji's blow had already crushed Tiger Liu's heart and completely cut off his vitality. Lin Sun added this chop just to end Tiger Liu's death in an instant. But Lin Sun was like a mad devil at this moment, ignoring everything. After cutting off Tiger Liu's head, he didn't stop. He chopped Tiger Liu's body dozens of times in a row as if he was venting his anger. Tiger Liu's body was mutilated. Lin Sun, it's time for us to go. Xie Ji's voice sounded. Although it was a little weak, it suddenly awakened Lin Sun in rage. He gasped a few times and came to Xie Ji. The little girl curled up on the ground, with a rare pale and weak look on her little face, and a pair of black jewel-like crescent eyes also became dim and lifeless. This made Lin Sun's heart ache again. Without thinking about anything else, he picked up Xie Ji, pulled out the white bone spear from Tiger Liu's body, and rushed out to the broken bronze door. Chapter 85. Late at night, in the dark and winding alley like a spider web, the lad ran all the way with the little girl in his arms. The whistling cold wind was like a knife, stinging his numb wounds. But compared with the worry in his heart, it was nothing. For the first time, Lin Sun found that Xie Ji had occupied an inseparable position in his heart. At the moment when she was hit flying, Lin Sun felt that the world collapsed. All his thoughts and ambitions disappeared, leaving only uncontrollable anger and madness. This feeling made Lin Sun's heart tremble, because for the first time, he knew that he could be irrational. Xie Ji, who was held in his arms, opened her eyes and looked at Lin Sun quietly. She didn't speak, but there seemed to be a faint smile on her pale face. Seeing that courtyard 49 was not far away, Lin Sun suddenly saw a figure in front of his house before he could breathe a sigh of relief. At the same time, the figure turned around and saw Lin Sun. It was Gu Yanping, the shopkeeper of Golden Hall. He seemed to understand something just by glancing at Lin Sun. He said seriously, "If you trust me, let me guard here." Lin Sun said in a hoarse voice, "Thank you." As he said, he rushed into the house with Xia Ji in his arms. He had no time to think about why Gu Yanping appeared here late at night. Gu Yanping watched Lin Sun's back disappear, and then he turned his mind and stood silently in front of the door like a door god. His appearance was ordinary, but as he stood there, he exuded an awe-inspiring aura that made him seem unmovable. "Father, I've found out that the nest of Black Tiger Gang suddenly caught fire. It is said that a strong enemy killed their way in, but the specific situation is still unclear." Not long after, a teenager hurried in the distant alley. It was Gu Liang, the son of Gu Yanping. Gu Yanping nodded and said, "Lin Sun has come back. Be prepared. It may not be peaceful tonight." A touch of killing intent flashed across his face. "Father, I heard that the helper of Black Tiger Gang is a strong practitioner in Gang Spirit Realm." Before Gu Liang finished, he was interrupted by Gu Yanping. "No matter who it is, no one can step into this door tonight." His voice was firm. Gu Liang was stunned and nodded silently. "Liang remember, a real commercial cultivator is not a cunning and slick person, nor is he a scoundrel who sails according to the wind." After a moment of silence, Gu Yanping suddenly said calmly, "Lin Sun has done us a favor, and we should repay him with kindness. It has nothing to do with whether he will cooperate with us in the future." Gu Liang's heart shook, and he nodded solemnly. "I understand." Gu Yanping nodded. His eyes looked into the distant deep night sky. This night would likely be very long. In the room, Lin carefully put Xia Ji on the bed, and was anxious about what kind of medicine he should take to heal her. Xia Ji suddenly said, "I only need to practice for a while to recover. You don't have to worry about me anymore." Lin Sun breathed a sigh of relief and said, "You really don't need to take some spiritual medicine?" Summer Solstice shook her head and said, "If we kill Tiger Liu, it will inevitably cause chaos in the Black Tiger Gang, and all this will inevitably attract the attention of other gangs. Our Shuangmu Gang will inevitably be affected. You have to be careful." Lin Sun immediately understood the meaning of her words. As soon as Tiger Liu died, the Black Tiger Gang would be leaderless and in chaos. This was a good time to annex it, and other gangs in the civilian area would certainly not miss such an opportunity. This was nothing for Lin Sun, but he had to be vigilant about whether other gangs would take the opportunity to deal with him and Xia Ji. Because now the civilian area knew that Lin Sun was the leader of Shuangmu Gang, and its power was constantly expanding, which had seriously threatened the survival of other gangs. Under such circumstances, if those gangs knew that he and Xia Ji were both seriously injured, they would be happy to take advantage of the situation and kill him and Xia Ji in one fell swoop. As the saying goes, when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. In the situation tonight, as long as other gangs saw the situation clearly, they would not be indifferent. On the bed, Xia Ji had already begun to cultivate. Her cultivation method was very unique. She sat in a lotus position with her back straight and shoulders stretched out. Her 10 fingers were interlocked, forming a strange hand seal and hugging in front of her. At the same time, she was permeated with an invisible force, and her whole body floated in the air. No one knew when the white bone spear also appeared and lay across Xia Ji's knees. Wisps of silver light floated from the surface of the spear and poured into Xia Ji's body. It could be clearly sensed that Xia Ji's breath was quiet and long, as if she had entered a mysterious deep level of practice. In the past, Xia Ji only ate and slept, as if she had never practiced at all. This was also the first time that Lin Sun saw Xia Ji practicing. Very mysterious. This was Lin Sun's biggest feeling. After staring quietly for a long time, Lin Sun saw that Xia Zhi's breath became stable, so he was completely relieved and quietly turned around and walked out of the room. Xia Zhi was very mysterious. Lin Sun knew it from a long time ago, and he had long been accustomed to it. The night was like a curtain. Tonight the sky was covered with thick clouds, and the stars and moon could not be seen. It seemed very dull. Walking into the courtyard, Lin Sun began to deal with the wounds on his body silently. He took off his shoulder pads, wrist guards and inner armor, and soon his body was exposed to the air. Bloody scars crisscrossed on his body, and there were bruises and internal injuries on his shoulders, ribs and waist. Each kind of injury represented a kind of unbearable pain. With so many injuries piled up, it could be imagined how great the pain was. But Lin Sun seemed not to feel it, and he didn't even frown. He had to hurry up to repair his injuries, because tonight was doomed to be difficult. "Child, if you don't mind, let me help you." Gu Yenping walked into the courtyard, and was surprised to see the wounds all over Lin Sun's body. "No need. I can do it myself." Lin Sun smiled and began to carefully clean each wound with water. Gu Yenping said with a little emotion, "If my son hadn't come back to tell me, you might have been in trouble. I'm afraid I wouldn't have known that you were so seriously injured." Lin Sun remembered that Gu Liang did come here in the evening. Obviously, what he told Gu Liang attracted Gu Yenping's attention, so he appeared in front of Lin Sun's house in the middle of the night. "It's nothing. The Black Tiger Gang wanted to kill me, so I had to take the initiative to kill them first." Lin Sun cleaned the wounds all over his body, took out the prepared medicine, and began to apply it carefully. Speaking of this, he suddenly smiled. "Fortunately, Tiger Liu has been killed by me, which makes me a lot more relaxed." Tiger Liu was dead. Gu Yenping was taken aback and looked at Lin Sun in a different way. He could be sure that Lin Sun did not lie. And this also meant that Tiger Liu, a strong practitioner in Gang Spirit Realm, might not exist in the world. Thinking that Lin Sun killed a strong practitioner in Gang Spirit Realm, Gu Yenping couldn't calm down. This young man was really incredible. But Gu Yenping didn't ask too much. When he calmed down, he quickly thought of another thing and said, "Once Tiger Liu is dead, his subordinates will inevitably fall apart. Once such a situation occurs, it will inevitably arouse the covetous eyes of other forces." Lin Sun interrupted, "Shopkeeper Gu, you don't know, but I'm afraid that other forces will come to make life difficult for me tonight." As he said, he frankly told the ins and outs of the matter, and didn't conceal anything about Shuangmu Gang. Hearing Lin's words, Gu Yenping seemed to have seen through Lin's intention. He nodded seriously and said, "The flaming spirit saber you sold last time helped Golden Hall a lot. Let me guard the door for you tonight." Lin Sun got up and solemnly saluted, "Thank you, Shopkeeper Gu." Then he said, "Shopkeeper Gu, you can call me Lin Sun in the future." Gu Yenping laughed, "Okay, but you can't call me Shopkeeper Gu, it sounds too distant." Lin Sun also laughed, "Then I'll be so bold to call you Uncle Gu." Gu Yenping laughed again, seeming to be quite happy, and said, "Take care of yourself. I'll go outside and see how many demons and monsters will come to die tonight." He turned around and left. Lin Sun looked at his back disappearing outside the door and couldn't help sighing with emotion in his heart. This Uncle Gu was not simple. Gu Yenping was indeed not simple. With only a flaming spirit saber, he made the whole Donglin town boil and made Golden Hall completely famous. Was this something an ordinary person could do? Now, he visited Lin Sun in the middle of the night just because of a word from his son, Gu Liang, which helped Lin Sun a lot. This was not icing on the cake, but a timely help. But from beginning to end, Gu Yenping never made any request, which was not like a businessman at all. But in this way, Lin Sun owed him a big favor. Even if he had any request in the future, Lin Sun would not refuse as long as he could do it. This was wisdom and means. Apart from making people deeply grateful, they also handled the matter beautifully. Even Lin Sun couldn't help admiring him at this time. At the same time, Gu Yanping, who was standing outside the door, also sighed with emotion in his heart. He had a rich life experience and had seen a lot of amazing young people. Some of them were outstanding in cultivation, and some of them were abnormally intelligent. Compared with these people, Lin Sun didn't seem to be so great. But Lin Sun had a unique breath, which was completely different from others. Gu Yanping couldn't tell the difference, but he was sure that as long as nothing happened to Lin Sun, this young man, he was destined to show amazing brilliance in the future. Would there be such a day? Gu Yanping's thoughts drifted for a moment as he thought of many things in the past. Suddenly, a sound of footsteps came from the alley in the distance, which immediately made Gu Yanping narrow his eyes and wake up from his thoughts. He still stood there motionless, but there was a faint, horrible breath gathering and running all over his body. His plain face had imperceptibly exuded a kind of compelling majesty. Chapter 86. Tiger Liu, the leader of Black Tiger Gang, was killed. In less than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, the news spread throughout the entire civilian area, attracting the attention of many other gangs. The leaders of the gangs realized at the first time that the opportunity to expand their territory had come. Black Tiger Gang was the largest underground force in the civilian area of Donglin Town. In the past years, Black Tiger Gang's territory had been expanding because of Tiger Liu, a strong practitioner in the gang spirit realm, who controlled many lucrative sources of profit. But now, with the death of Tiger Liu, Black Tiger Gang had completely lost its sharp fangs and became a piece of tempting fat, which everyone wanted to have a bite of. This was the only opportunity. If they couldn't seize it, it would be too late to regret later. So, on that night, almost all the gangs in the civilian area, such as Green Bamboo Gang, Black Water Gang, Scorpion Gang for a time, the alleys of the civilian area were full of ferocious gang members. Like a group of hungry wolves smelling blood, they rushed to the territory of Black Tiger Gang. Before long, the sound of fighting and cursing began to ring in various areas. The light of knives and swords, the rain of blood, and the wind of foul wind, intertwined in the dark night, staging a tragic scene of life and death. This night was indeed not peaceful. The night shrouding the civilian area seemed to be bleeding. Before long, someone found out that Tiger Liu was killed by the leader of Shuangmu Gang. According to the intelligence, the leader of Shuangmu Gang had been seriously injured in the fight with Tiger Liu. Regardless of whether this information was true or false, it made many of the gang leaders think of another opportunity. In today's civilian area, Shuangmu Gang, like a rising star, rose strongly in less than a month and annexed 5 or 6 nearby gangs, which was also a serious threat to other gangs. Now, hearing that the death of the leader of Black Tiger Gang was related to Shuangmu Gang, other gangs immediately realized that the present situation was a situation of, when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Perhaps they could take this opportunity to annex the territory of Shuangmu Gang in one fell swoop. Before long, a group of people rushed to the front of Courtyard 49. This group of people came from the Scorpion Gang, headed by Chai Xiao, the second in the gang, nicknamed Poisonous Sparrowhawk. Chai Xiao was a strong practitioner on the 8th level of martial realm, famous for his ruthlessness and viciousness. Countless people had died in his hands over the years, so he was notorious. Behind Chai Xiao was a group of gang members, about a dozen of them, all practitioners. According to the arrangement of the leader of the Scorpion Gang, with such a strong elite force, it was enough to eradicate the seriously injured leader of Shuangmu Gang. Of course, it didn't matter even if the leader escaped. They were Shuangmu Gang members. Shuangmu Gang. Hurry! Don't let other gangs get ahead of us. After we kill Shuangmu Gang's leader, this area will be our Scorpion Gang's territory. Chai Xiao shouted loudly, urging everyone. He was complacent and eager to make a move. When Chai Chai Xiao Gang Shuangmu Gang members, and Shuangmu Tiger Gang and Shuangmu Gang, Chai Chuan, Chao Tiger, Gang and Li Gang Gang Sect, Tiger Tiger. But when he arrived in front of Courtyard 49, Chai Xiao suddenly froze and saw a man standing in front of the gate. That man looked mediocre, standing there quietly, like an ordinary person. But when Chai Xiao saw this man, he felt an inexplicable fear in his heart. This was definitely not the leader of Shuangmu Gang. But who was this man? Chai Xiao was cunning. With a flash of his eyes, he waved his hand and said, "Let's rush in together." Immediately, a group of practitioners of the Scorpion Gang moved out, each with a cruel face. On the contrary, Chai Xiao quietly hid behind and did not go forward. Until now, the fear in his heart had not subsided, which made him smell the breath of danger. He planned to wait and see. Looking at a group of practitioners rushing over, Gu Yanping curled his lips with a touch of disdain. He held his hands casually in a circle and pressed gently in the void. Clatter! Like the sound of rushing water, the bright and dazzling blue power of Gang Spirit surged like a lifelike water dragon, hovering between Gu Yanping's palms and making a vigorous roar, like a dragon's roar. Secret combat skill, Water Dragon Roar. Boom! Those practitioners who rushed over only felt a blur in front of their eyes. With a bang, all of them seemed to be shaken out and hit the surrounding walls. Their bones and tendons were broken and they all fainted. It was just a casual blow, but it suppressed more than a dozen people in an instant. It was nothing more than that. What kind of power did this strike possess to be able to achieve such a feat? Hiss! In the distance, Chai Xiao gasped as if he was struck by lightning. A strong practitioner of Gang's spirit realm, releasing spiritual power, killing enemies in the air, and the means of deriving Gang spirit into a rushing water dragon were obviously not ordinary combat skills. But how could such a guy be willing to be a gatekeeper in front of the number 49 courtyard tonight? Chai Xiao felt cold all over and subconsciously turned around to escape. Bang! But in merely an instant, a surging water dragon arrived before him, and it instantly drowned Chai Xiao's entire body. He suddenly let out a shrill cry, and then his body fell to the ground with a thump as he perished on the spot. This sudden battle was finished in just a few blinks of an eye. From beginning to end, Gu Yanping only used one move to kill all the people on the scene. Lin Sun, who had been standing in the gate and watching for a long time, couldn't help but feel surprised. Gu Yanping turned out to be a hidden master of Gang's spirit realm. And Lin Sun had a strong feeling that even if Tiger Liu was still alive, he might not be a match for Gu Yanping. The blow just now was too incredible. Gang's spirit turned into a water dragon, roaring and glaring, piercing the night. Its power was also extremely terrible. At least Lin Sun was not sure whether he could resist this blow or not. "Father, why did you kill him?" In the distance, Gu Liang came in a hurry and asked in puzzlement. Gu Yanping didn't answer, but looked at Lin Sun inside the gate and said, "Lin Sun, do you know why I let them stay? To make an example for others." Lin Sun smiled and said concisely, "I see." Gu Liang also understood. Tonight, because of the Black Tiger Gang, other gangs in the civilian area were like flies smelling blood. It was destined that there would be no peace tonight. Similarly, the situation was extremely unfavorable and dangerous for Lin Sun. This time, it was a group of elites from the Scorpion Gang. Maybe some other gang members would come one after another later. If he didn't establish his power as soon as possible, even if Gu Yanping was in charge in person, it was bound to be extremely troublesome. "Why didn't your Shuangmu Gang members come out tonight?" Gu Yanping suddenly asked. Lin Sun said casually, "I have ordered them to hide today. No matter what they hear, they can't get involved." Gu Yanping understood in an instant and praised generously. What a good strategy of watching the fire from the other side and watching the tigers fight. Gu Liang looked at Lin Sun in surprise and said, "Have you already predicted that so many things would happen tonight?" Lin Sun explained patiently, I just made some preparations in advance. As soon as Tiger Liu died, the Black Tiger gang would inevitably be occupied by other gangs. Letting a group of hungry wolves grab a piece of meat is bound to cause some fierce battles. If the Shuangmu gang gets involved, obviously it is impossible to avoid confrontation and competition with other gangs. It's better to lie dormant first and watch the tigers fight. After a pause, he continued, after this fight, other gangs may be able to occupy a lot of territory of the Black Tiger gang, but they will also lose a lot of strength because of the fight. When there is a chance in the future, it is not difficult to annex them one by one. Listening to Lin Sun's orderly and calm analysis, Gu Liang said with slight admiration, "No wonder my father appreciates you so much. You are really different from others." Originally, he didn't think much of Lin Sun when he saw that Lin Sun was only a teenager of 13 or 14 years old, who was a few years younger than him. But now hearing this, plus Lin Sun's feat of killing Tiger Liu, Gu Liang's impression of him suddenly changed greatly. Lin Sun smiled and said no more. He turned around and walked into the courtyard. That night, the fight between the gangs continued, and the entire civilian area was not peaceful. It was unknown how many residents were disturbed from their dreams. Similarly, after Chai Xiao and others of the Scorpion Gang, many gangs sent people to take the opportunity to encroach on the territory of the Shuangmu Gang. But when they saw Chai Xiao's body lying on the ground and more than a dozen corpses of practitioners belonging to the Scorpion Gang, these gang members all retreated decisively and left in a hurry with all kinds of shocked and complicated thoughts. This night seemed particularly long. Lin Sun, however, looked very calm. He sat alone in the courtyard and meditated to heal his wounds. It seemed that he had completely forgotten that the initial realm was still full of danger. However, his calm and composed state of mind caused Gu Yanping to look at him in an even higher light. In the same night, in a single dormitory in Donglin School, Lian Fei paced back and forth restlessly. His eyes were bloodshot and he was not sleepy at all. Why hadn't there been any news until now? The efficiency of the Black Tiger Gang was too low. Lian Fei was restless. He worried about gains and losses. If he couldn't kill Lin Sun this time, there wouldn't be many chances for revenge in the future. Suddenly, the door was pushed open, and a gust of cold wind poured in. The biting chill made Lian Fei shiver all over. Only then did he see clearly that it was Shui Yong who came in. But Shui Yong's face was extremely bad at the moment. As soon as he entered the room, he gritted his teeth and said, "The operation failed." "What?" Lian Fei cried out with a dull look. "Failed? How could it be possible?" He suddenly became excited again, and his face was gloomy and ruthless. He grabbed Shui Yong's lapel and said sternly, "Tiger Liu is a strong practitioner in the gang spirit realm with thousands of gang members under his command. How could he be defeated?" Shui Yong pushed Lian Fei away and said coldly, "I'm not afraid to tell you that Tiger Liu was not only defeated, but also became a dead body. The murderers were Lin Sun and a little girl. Think about it yourself. I have to go back to the clan to report this matter." After that, Shui Yong flicked his sleeves and left. Whimper, the cold wind whistled and slapped against the door, making it creak. Lian Fei seemed to be unaware of it. He looked dull and lost, and just murmured, "A practitioner on the 5th level of martial realm killed a strong practitioner in the gang spirit realm. How could it be possible?" After a long time, Lian Fei calmed down a little, but the haze on his face couldn't be wiped away for a while. He knew that the continuous failures, especially the murder of Tiger Liu, would only make Clan of Wu re-examine the degree of danger Lin Sun posed, and they wouldn't act rashly in a short time. This also meant that Lian Fei had completely lost the power to support his revenge. No matter how unwilling he was, he had to bear it. "Lin Sun, don't be complacent too early. Sooner or later, I will sacrifice your life to my father's soul." Lian Fei's handsome face was grim and ferocious at the moment, as if there was a fierce beast roaring in his heart. Chapter 87. It was early in the morning, not far from dawn. Lin soon devoted himself to cultivation. His injuries were not serious, and they could be completely healed in 3 or 5 days after applying the spiritual medicine. Thanks to his physical strength, which had become much stronger than before, he would be fine as long as the ordinary knife and sword wounds didn't hurt his vital parts. At this time, Lin Sun was deducing the 6-word saberplay in his mind. In the bloody battle he had experienced in the Black Tiger Gang's lair, he had single-handedly killed dozens of true martial realm practitioners. At that moment, he had been completely immersed in the battle and had no chance to carefully experience the details of the battle. Thinking of it now, Lin Sun had a lot of enlightenment. Battles were never armchair strategies, nor could they be done behind closed doors. Although the 6-word saberplay only had 6 movements, chopping, entangling, spinning, shaking, stabbing, and peeling, each movement contained many mysteries, which could be called a unique saberplay with both ruthlessness and difficulty. But in the final analysis, the 6-word saberplay was still a kind of fighting skill, created for fighting. If one wanted to understand and master its mysteries, he absolutely couldn't do it without fighting. In the past, Lin Sun didn't have much fighting experience. He could only achieve the nuance level of the martial Tao with great efforts, and then it was difficult to make further progress. But now, after a bloody battle and the tempering and polishing of life and death, Lin Sun had many more insights. The subtle key points that he couldn't understand in the past all emerged in his mind at this moment, and he was gradually comprehended. As long as I experience some more battles, I should be able to achieve the precision level of the 6-word saberplay. Lin Sun had a feeling that the bloody battle of this night deepened his understanding of the 6-word saberplay, and at the same time, his control and cognition of strength had a new improvement. Suddenly, a conversation arose outside the gate of the courtyard, which attracted Lin Sun's attention. He immediately got up and went out. It was already late at night and dawn was coming. The fighting in the civilian area had begun to gradually decrease. In front of Lin Sun's house, Gu Yanping, a strong practitioner in the gang spirit realm, had completely cut off the possibility of other gangs attacking. Who would come at such a time? When he walked out of the gate of the yard, Lin Sun saw an unexpected person, Fu Wanglin, an appraiser of keystone business. What surprised Lin Sun the most was that Wang Lin was not alone. He also brought a group of subordinates with him, carrying a string of bloody heads in their hands. Could it be that after Mu Wansu heard about what happened tonight, she found her conscience and sent Wang Lin to support her? As soon as this idea came to Lin Sun's mind, he immediately denied it. Mu Wansu was a woman who had a clear distinction between love and hate. Moreover, her attitude was decisive. If she wanted to help him, she would have immediately arranged some means when the Black Tiger Gang was preparing to deal with him. Why would she wait until now? Then, why was Wang Lin here? Lin Sun was a little uncertain. A few days ago, he was driven away from keystone business by Wang Lin. Although he knew it was Mu Wansu's idea, Lin Sun still had a little grudge in his heart. On that day, he personally sent the flaming spirit saber to keystone business. He thought that keystone business would appreciate it, and it could be regarded as his repayment for the previous kindness. Who would have thought that he was asked to leave, which was a bit uncomfortable. Wang Lin was talking with Gu Yanping. Seeing Lin Sun, he immediately smiled and said, "Child Lin, please forgive me for disturbing you so late at night." Lin Sun said with a smile, "Uncle Wang Lin is too polite." His attitude was neither cold nor warm, neither humble nor arrogant, and he didn't mean to invite Wang Lin into his home. Seeing this, Wang Lin couldn't help sighing in his heart. This little guy still had resentment in his heart. On his face, Wang Lin smiled more amiably and said, "Late at night, I heard that some thieves were going to make trouble for Child Lin, so I hurried to support you with my subordinates. On the way, I met some thieves who were going to make trouble for you, so I made the decision to take them all down." Speaking of this, He pointed to a string of human heads in the hands of his subordinate next to him and said, "Child, please have a look. There seem to be some big shots from the Green Bamboo Gang among them." Lin Sun immediately understood that Wang Lin came to express his goodwill. Obviously, he had found out the relationship between Lin Sun and Shuangmu Gang, so he showed great sincerity. Taking the Green Bamboo Gang as an example could be regarded as an act of making amends. But why did Wang Lin do this? Obviously, all this had something to do with the flaming spirit saber sold to Golden Hall a few days ago. And Wang Lin might have guessed something when he came here, so he made up his mind to express his goodwill to Lin Sun. "Thank you, Uncle Wang Lin." Lin Sun cupped his hands and said, "Haha, it's nothing. As long as you are safe and sound, it's enough." Wang Lin laughed loudly. "Lin Sun, it's about to dawn. I think the situation has stabilized, so I won't bother you anymore. Goodbye." Gu Yanping suddenly said, "Uncle Gu, wait a minute." Lin Sun suddenly thought of something and hurried back to his room. When he came back, he handed a parcel to Gu Yanping and said, "This is a gift from me. Please accept it." Gu Yanping raised his eyebrows and said, "If it's just some worldly possessions, take them back. I didn't come to help you for these." Lin Sun smiled and said, "Uncle Gu, you can open it and have a look." Gu Yanping thought for a while and finally took the parcel. When he opened it, his eyes suddenly narrowed. There was a flaming spirit saber overflowing with cold light in the parcel. Seeing this scene, Wang Lin on one side was also shocked. Sure enough, Lin Sun had more than one flaming spirit saber. He must have something to do with the mysterious spiritual tattooist. Gu Yanping put it away calmly, glanced at Wang Lin and nodded to Lin Sun. "Golden Hall is in urgent need of such a good treasure to keep up appearances. I will accept it, but when this treasure is sold, Golden Hall will give a fair price for the profit." When Lin Sun was about to say something, Gu Yanping waved his hand and interrupted him with a smile. "Just listen to me. Well, goodbye." As he said, he turned around and left with Gu Liang. The demeanor of scrupulously abiding by rules and propriety was obviously different from that of other businessmen. This was a commercial practitioner. As soon as Gu Yanping left, Wang Lin also said goodbye and hurried away with a group of guard. Lin Sun didn't ask Wang Lin to stay. He watched Wang Lin leave, but he was very clear that Wang Lin would tell Mu Wansu everything he saw today after returning to Keystone business. If Mu Wansu knew that he had more than one flaming spirit saber, what would she think? Lin Sun thought with some ridicule, and then shook his head silently. He and Mu Wansu were not enemies. Speaking of which, he still owed Keystone business a favor. So although Lin Sun had some complaints about Mu Wansu in his heart, he wouldn't do anything to disgust Mu Wansu. The reason why he let Wang Lin see the flaming spirit saber tonight was also a signal sent by Lin Sun to reconfirm Mu Wansu's real attitude towards him. Without thinking more, Lin Sun closed the gate of the courtyard and returned to the house. Xia Ji was still practicing, and there was no sign of her waking up. He couldn't help thinking that after what happened tonight, whether it was clan of Wu or Lian Fei, as long as they were not stupid, they should restrain themselves a little. Clan of Wu in the splendid conference hall, there were endless quarrels. Since Tiger Liu of Black Tiger Gang was killed, this kind of quarrel had been going on. Wu Chaochuan, first elder Wu Yunshan, second elder Wu Yushan, and third elder Wu Lanshan all looked gloomy. The core of the quarrel was whether to continue the action of killing Lin Sun. Some people said that Wu Henshui, Wu Jie and others were all killed by Lin Sun, which made clan of Wu lose face. They must eradicate Lin Sun to defend the dignity of clan of Wu. Some people also said that Black Widow, Du Shao, and Elder Frown were all defeated in the operation these days. Even Tiger Liu of Black Tiger Gang was killed, which made the huge price paid by the clan of Wu go down the drain. All these had completely proved that Lin Sun was not easy to deal with. The urgent task was not to continue the action, but to reformulate a plan and make a plan slowly. These two views had their own reasons, so they didn't reach a consensus after quarreling for a long time. It wasn't until dawn arrived that a scout came to report. Only then did this long quarrel come to end. The news was very simple. It said that Gu Yanping, the shopkeeper of Golden Hall, had stood up for Lin Sun. At the same time, Wang Lin of Keystone Business went to Lin Sun's home with a group of guards. All these showed that Keystone Business also began to intervene in this matter. When they learned all this, the bigwigs of Clan of Wu completely realized the seriousness of the situation. Finally, they reached a consensus that they should bear it for the time being and wait and see. They were not afraid of Lin Sun, a teenager, but they had to consider the power of Keystone Business. Gu Yanping, the shopkeeper of Golden Hall, was not simple either. He was a strong practitioner in Gang Spirit Realm, who could be regarded as a top figure in Donglin Town. Under such circumstances, even if Clan of Wu was unwilling and aggrieved, they had no choice but to change their strategy against Lin Sun. At the break of dawn, the deep night was dispelled, and a new day ushered in the world. On this new day, the chaos and blood of last night in the civilian area had already come to an end. Even if there were still some undercurrents, at least they had been temporarily stabilized. All these waves were confined to the civilian area and did not affect other areas of Donglin Town. This was quite normal. Every year in the civilian area, some gangs were destroyed and some new gangs were born. The change of old and new forces was so frequent that people living here had long been accustomed to it. On the same new day, Golden Hall announced again in the morning that it would sell a new flaming spirit saber, which immediately caused a lot of uproar and attention. Wang Lin walked into the deepest courtyard of Keystone Business and was ready to report to Mu Wansu what had happened last night. In Courtyard 49 of the civilian area, Lin Sun had washed up in a hurry and began to repair the severely damaged and messy courtyard. In the room, Xia Ji was still meditating. Her quiet and beautiful face was bathed in the morning sunshine, which was picturesque. Chapter 88. After 10 minutes, I wanted to write a speech, but my mind was blank as I sat there. My fingers were sore and my muscles were stiff. However, my nerves were unexpectedly excited, as if I was possessed. This wasn't right, I knew. But I still had to say something. I wouldn't feel good if I didn't. Those who had read Rune Emperor before would know that Goldfish had started preparing for this new book in November last year. By then, she would be gathering materials, organizing documents, tinkering with the outline, refining inspiration. She would be extremely busy. After preparing for around 3 months, she finally decided on the theme of the Heavenly Genius Battle in February this year. There was no need to tell others about the struggle and pain involved. Then, on February 24th, she officially released the first chapter of the Heavenly Genius Battle. It had been updated continuously for 36 days, and she had written 257,000 words. I couldn't tell whether the new book was good or bad, but the numbers had exceeded my original expectations. This made me heave a sigh of relief. Every author was worried that their new book would be a flop. They were worried that the new book wouldn't be good enough and would be abandoned by the readers. Goldfish was no exception. This worry had persisted since the day the new book was released. She couldn't get rid of it or vent it. In her daily life, she didn't have much entertainment to do for the sake of writing a book. It was boring, but she had to endure it. Everything she had done was because she cared too much. A book was like an author's child. This saying wasn't just for show. Luckily, in the past 36 days, many of her old brothers and friends had accompanied her. There were also many new friends who were active in the book review and comment section. This let Goldfish know that at least she wasn't fighting alone. Writing a book was lonely, so she craved for everyone's approval and support. That was the only way for every author to persevere in writing. In the past 36 days, her friends in the V group, the Goldfish Pond normal chat group, the club, and many of her friends on WeChat were following the new book. This was probably the happiest thing that Goldfish felt when she wasn't writing. Especially tonight, with the help of our brothers and sisters, we have taken the 5th place on the monthly votes ranking in the first month of the Prodigy Battle Chronicles. 5th place. For a new book, this was an unimaginable glory. This belongs to me, belongs to the Prodigy Battle, and belongs to everyone here. To be honest, before I tried to break into the monthly votes ranking, I felt like I was overestimating myself, like I was trying to hit a rock with an egg. I didn't have confidence in myself and I didn't dare to believe it. After all, it was only the first month of a new book, and my foundation was shallow. How could I possibly have the chance to rise? But in the end, with everyone's support, it became a reality. When I saw this impressive result, I was really stunned. I couldn't tell what I was feeling. I refreshed the page dozens of times before I finally dared to believe that it was true. Then, I sat there and smoked a cigarette, laughing like an idiot. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of myself. Here, I especially want to thank Xiaji. Really, without her efforts this month, we definitely wouldn't have gotten 5th place. Xiaji was a good girl. She studied hard and was kind. Everyone in the group liked her. It was just like how I used Xiaji to say to the main character Lin Sun in the Tianjiao battle, "I'll help you." It was just 3 simple words, but I was so touched that I was stunned for a long time. The feeling was truly wonderful. Also, Tycoon X, this guy looked like he didn't care about anything, but he was actually the most responsible one. Not only did he help me get on the monthly votes ranking, he also helped me manage a few book friend groups. He put in a lot of effort behind the scenes, and I saw it with my own eyes. Between men, I would never show anything, but I was definitely grateful. Also, Brother Jiue, Sister Dodian, Ting Xiao, Qing Tian, Thinking Cat, Little Su, Taoist, Xiao Xiao, Lemon, Ming, Exclusive, Scum, Det Song, Little Seven, Silent Voice, Ren Huan Yu, Yanbatu, Watch Q, Wolf, Black-Eyed, so many brothers and sisters. If I listed them one by one, it would take me a long time to finish. Why did I say so much? That's because in the years I've been writing, I've always believed in a concept. Book friends and authors aren't enemies, but friends. I won't put on airs, nor will I use my identity as an author to put on airs. Instead, I'm really willing to communicate with everyone and treat everyone as friends. I'm not afraid of being laughed at. In the V group, I've always been a funny character. But I feel quite happy. At least when people communicate with me, they've thrown away a lot of barriers regarding my identity as an author and treated me as a friend. That's what I want. I've said so much because I have feelings, and I won't be happy if I don't say it out. If I want to be grateful, I'll say it all out so that everyone can understand what I'm thinking. That's enough. Finally, it's the first day of April. The monthly votes in everyone's hands have been refreshed. Please vote for Goldfish. A new month has begun, and Goldfish won't slack off. My friends who followed me from Rune Emperor all know that Goldfish has never dropped the ball when it comes to writing book. Now that I'm writing the Tianjiao battle, I'll only work harder. In this way, I won't disappoint everyone's support and love.